This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
So hello everyone, welcome to our day 29 in our GCP Cloud Architect training. So last week we had stopped at understanding the VPC concept. One of the very unique feature which we learned was Google's VPC is global in nature, and VPC comprises of subnetworks which is regional in nature. And we also explored little bit about auto mode, custom mode, VPC, and we also made a decision that it's always preferred to use custom mode because you have that luxury of selecting your RFC 1918 standard. No sound, folks. Others are able to hear it, or is it only Anil Kumar who's not able to hear us? Others, you are able to hear me, folks? Okay, Anil Kumar, just give a try logging off and logging in back. Others are able to hear it. Just give a try. Yeah, thank you, folks, for the confirmation. So basically, we saw about auto mode and custom mode. We also had a discussion that it's always preferred to use custom mode because you get that range of IPs which you can decide. And usually on-prem IP range cannot be changed because they are running for ages. You are creating something new in cloud, you have that flexibility of changing something new. So always look for the IPs which is there in on-prem, change something which is not there, use something which is not there, and then provision your VPC is what we had seen. And we also explored about a little bit about firewall rules, where we saw firewall rules can be applied to all the instances in that network. That was the most easiest one. Then we tried applying tags, and we saw how it works. And we also saw the drawback of tags, because last week I told, if you are a minimum compute instance admin, you will have a permission called as set. One, folks, I hear my own voice. Everybody muted. No, I have to mute everybody. Okay, now it should be fine. One minute. Okay. So we saw the advantage of tags is very easy. We can easily make sure something starts working, the firewall rule starts applying. But we also understood, if we are using something called as a compute instance admin, bare minimum, this role is going to have one specific permission called as set tag. With this, any developer or any person who has access, who has this access compute instance role, can be easily able to apply a necessary tag to the VM which this person provisions and do anything basically. So that was the drawback which we had seen. So today we'll try to see a better approach. When you do something in production, you should always use this, which is use firewalls using a service account. So always use a service account to do this. This is what we are going to see, and this is going to be a little long demonstration, but a best practice. And this could be a possible question in the exam also, something related to the best practice. And the same thing which you are going to see now can be applied back to your MIG demo which you did. So what I would always suggest you to do is, MIG, when we did, we were in a very preliminary stage. We are having very basic idea about GCP. Now whenever you finish this, once you finish this networking concept, I would strongly suggest you to uh, go back to your MIG demo, enhance it. So for example, when we did our MIG demo, we used default VPC, and we even did not explore much there because we were not knowing much of network. Now at least now we know something about networking, right? Go back, try enhancing your MIG demo. That's going to be better, is what I would say. So let's try to do a demonstration on using firewall rules, but using service account. So there's a prerequisite, so I'm going to do one by one, and I have not added this stuff in the cheat sheet, the steps. I'm going to add it by end of today, and you should be able to see it. Okay, the first step which we are going to do is, let's use a user who's going to only have basically um, what um, compute instance admin role, compute instance role, and we'll also create a service account which is going to be used. So first, let's create a service account. Step number one. Step number one. First of all, let me go and let me see whether the zoom level is good enough. Yeah, this should be good. If I'm not wrong, this should be good. So let me create. I'm in my batch 6. So let me go to my service account. So we have the default two service account, one related to App Engine, the other related to Compute Engine. So we'll create a new service account specifically for this. So I'll call this as something like firewall rule SVC. Firewall rule service account. Simple. That's it. What is this rule? Use this service account for VMs uh, or demo on firewall rule plus service account. That's the name of the service account and the description. The description is very, very important, folks. Uh, and we will give the service account basically a role which is going to be just to use storage buckets, nothing else. Just view the storage buckets, or maybe um, look the content in the storage bucket. So if I just go, anything you can give. Storage is something very simple. That's the reason I'm going to give that. So storage, and I usually don't search, because by scrolling it, you will definitely know some attractive roles which you may want to see. For example, game service. So that's the whole reason why I always scroll. It's going to take time, but our learning is going to be much better. Storage, object, viewer. This should be good enough. Object viewer, just to view the objects, nothing else. That's it. Click done. So I have a service account which is going to be used when we are creating the firewall rule. We are going to use specifically this service account. That's good. What we will do now is we will click on the service account and give access to a specific user. So if you see here, there are 3 users who are already having this. Basically, the editors and the owners of this project already inherit this by default. Now I'm going to also grant access to another user called as Mahesh. What I'll give is this user basically compute service account user role, so that this user can use a service account. Basically, that is the whole purpose. Only this service account, no other service account, only this service account. Now you see this at the bottom. Let's wait for this screen to go off. Yeah, you see Mahesh is having a service account user role. So far, is this clear, folks? We just created a service account, gave a specific user access to this service account user role. That's it. That's the first prerequisite. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a brand new VPC. So I have deleted the VPCs which we played around. So we have only one VPC, which is a custom VPC. Let me create a new VPC. And we know whenever you create a VPC, make sure you create a firewall rule to SSH and ping, all those things. We know that now. So I'm going to do that. So let me call this VPC as VPC SVC service account, something like S service or SA service account. And we will always prefer custom mode. Let's have only one subnetwork, which is in Singapore. I'm going to call this as Subnet SA, just to indicate it is used only for this demonstration. Let me select region as Singapore and range, which could be something like 10 dot 100 dot 200 dot 0/24. So is a valid RFC 1918 standard because it is 10 dot address space. Good. And all other stuffs we are going to leave it as default, and we will come back on all those things once we explore them during the next exploration stage. So the VPC is getting created. Let's wait for the VPC to get created. The next part which we are going to do is we are going to create two firewall rules, folks. Both are going to do the same thing: allow SSH and allow ICMP, basically, but two different ways of doing it. There's one question from Deepak. So the service account has access to storage buckets, not to the storage bucket, but if you provide a specific bucket, inside the bucket the objects can be viewed. Inside the bucket the objects can be viewed, because I have given just object viewer, not the bucket. We don't have a role like storage object bucket viewer currently. So I'll show you that. Once you use the virtual machine with that service account, you should be able to access your bucket, the objects inside a bucket. Okay. Now we have the VPC. We will never make the mistake of what we did last Sunday. So whenever you create a VPC, it is mandatory that you create a firewall rule. If you don't do it, you are going to have only two firewall rules. One is what is the default firewall rules which you get, folks? The implied firewall rules, two implicit firewall rules which you get if you just have a VPC, nothing else. What are the two things? Deny for what? Deny all to outside, then okay. Deny all incoming. Yes, Anil Kumar. Deny all incoming or ingress. Vivek and Anil Kumar is correct. Deny all your incoming traffic, SSH, ping, and allow all outgoing traffic. Allow all outgoing traffic or outbound traffic or egress traffic. So those are two firewall rules which is going to have. Will not make that mistake. So we are going to create a firewall rule. So two firewall rules to be created for that VPC. Firewall rule is always created at a VPC level. Since VPC is global, firewall rule is also going to be global. So let me create a firewall rule, and always make sure the firewall rule has a good naming convention, folks. By just looking at the firewall rule, somebody with the GCP background should be able to understand, and somebody with a networking background should be able to understand, yeah, this is the one which this firewall rule is going to do. That should be the level of naming convention you should use. So what we are going to use is something like I'm going to first select this mistake I always do, use it to apply it to a different network. So always make sure when you are doing it in the UI, when you are doing it in the command line, it's always good. So when you're doing it in the UI, make sure your firewall network is first selected, so that you know VPC SA allow ICMP, then SSH. I'm going to apply everything basically using tags. So I'm going to mention it as tags FW. So, or you put FW in the front or at the back, your choice. It's a firewall rule for VPC SA network, which is going to allow ICMP and SSH, and I'm going to use tags. Use tags. This is what I'm going to do. So network is there, incoming traffic, allow, specific tag, and the name of the tag which we are going to use, our choice, we can use anything, allow SSH ICMP. This is the textual content which I have to use in my VM so that this firewall rule gets applied. So good. And we know we should never put 0.0.0. You have to put a specific thing. We have learned it. And for the demonstration purpose, I'm going to use 0.0.0. We know it should not be used. Done. So that's our source IP. So it can be SSH from any machine from the world, or pinged from any machine from the world. That is the stuff. And what is the specific rule you want to apply? Only port 22, which is SSH, and ICMP, Internet Control Message Protocol, for ping. Good. Something which we have seen last week itself. We have specifically given a better naming convention, and we have a tag. That's it. So this is the first firewall rule, which is going to do SSH and ping. Click create. Now I'm going to create one more firewall rule. What is that? Something very similar, but the filter is going to be, or the target is going to be, a service account. So let me create it. So I'm going to copy that. Instead of tags, I'm going to use that SA, service account. SA. Now to which network? VPC SA. Then I'm not going to use all instances. We have already used, that was the first demo. Tags we have used a couple of times, including today's class. First time we are going to use a specified service account. This is the best way you can do it. Why? You will understand by the end of this demonstration. So done. You can use a service account which is in this project or in some other project also. That is possible, because at the end it is nothing but an email ID, folks. That's it. Email ID. So you will see all the three service accounts. Two default, the other one is the one which we just created in our class. Click on this. So this is a service account. Now this is the most important part in this demonstration. Source IP, I'll keep it as same. This is the only change. The first firewall rule is using tags. The second firewall rule using service account. That's it. Everything remains the same. Source IP, the protocols, everything remains the same. Done. Port 22 and ICMP. That's it. So what we did, basically gave a name which is very intuitive to understand from the name itself. Selected a network. This is the most important part. We use a specified service account which we just created it. We gave that, we mentioned that, and remaining everything is the same. So because we are doing this for the first time, it's always good to look into the command line equivalent of it. How does it look like? So the key part here is going to be target service. If it's basically a tag, it's going to be a target tag. Here it's going to be target service. Good. Let me click on create. So far, is it clear, folks? We just created a service account, gave a user an access to that service account. Then we created a VPC. Then we created two firewall rules. You see this two firewall rules, folks? No difference. Or if you have too many firewall rules, right? You can put a filter like this. Network, VPC. It's going to only show those two firewall rules. Those two firewall rules, which is exactly the same thing. Both the firewall rules can do the same thing. Is there anything till here not clear, folks? Uh, both firewall rules identical. Only the target, the style in which you are going to apply is going to be different. Uh, thank you, folks. Thank you for confirming. It's very clear. So now what we are going to do is, we gave everything. So let's make this user, Mahesh user. If you see in my IAM, this is nothing, there's nothing there. Everything is basically the owner and few of the service accounts. Now what I'm going to do is give this user but the source IP accessed by public. Yeah, it is accessed by public. And so basically, if you have, so you can do ping. Even you will be able to do ping, Mangesh, once I create the virtual machine. But you will not be able to SSH. Last time Anil B mentioned he was trying to SSH, it did not work because the the private key you will not have, and the SSH key, the public key, is not shared with you. So since you don't have the credential, you will not be able to connect. But if you have these keys, you can definitely connect from anywhere. So now I have only these roles. I'm going to add Mahesh. and I'm going to give you the most basic version to create VMs. Nothing else, folks, nothing else. So I'm going to use, as per the document which we saw last week, compute instance admin, sorry, compute instance role. So if I just go to compute this thing, so I'm not going to give compute admin. Remember, as a compute admin, you can modify firewall rules. I don't want this person to modify any firewall rules. I just wanted to give him, there are two versions, instance admin, beta and version 1. So I'm going to use version 1. That's it. That's it. I have given this user compute instance admin role. Now, if I go to my roles just to verify and show you why I use that. So if I select compute instance admin role, 262 permissions are there. If you just search for firewall rule, you can only get the details of the firewall rule, list the firewall rules. This rule can only do that. So what is that rule which can create firewall rules and delete firewall rules? Only two. So to know that, basically use compute dot firewall rules create. Who can create it? Basically the one which we know, at least as of now, is compute admin can create it. Others are slightly different, which we cannot custom remove it because that's something which we created. A compute admin can do it. Compute security admin, this is an important thing, folks. This could be a possible question if you are taking security engineer uh, in the future. This could be a possible question. Who can create uh, the bare minimum role which can create a service, which can create a firewall rule? Compute security admin, only 75 permissions. This role can create a firewall rule, or it could be editor, or it could be owner. Remaining we have not even explored. Flexible service agent is another one possible thing which we have explored so far. That's it. Very less set of roles. Basically, 13 roles only can create a firewall. So far, so good. Now, what we will do is basically log in as this user. Log in as this user. Let me just show you whether I have any VMs. So in batch 6, I may not have any VMs. I don't have any VMs. I don't have any VMs. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use basically this user, login as this user in my Edge browser, and show you I am going to create two VMs. One, both the VMs I'm going to create with all the default settings. Then other one I'm going to create with a service account which we created, and we'll see how things are going to work. Okay, so I'm in my Edge browser. So this is my Edge browser. You can see it is Edge, and if I click on this, it shows the same email ID which we are logged in. So I'm going to refresh the screen because we gave access for it to reflect. Refreshed. Now it's not part of the organization. I'm going to change it to no org. So I see batch 6. Good. When I click on batch 6, what I have access to this project is basically, I'm just going to refresh it better, is only a compute instance admin role, nothing else, only that. So I don't have access to App Engine, I don't have access to Cloud SQL instance, I don't have access to billing. So let me just go to my compute engine screen and create a virtual machine. Before creating virtual machine, I'll just show you whether this user has the capability to edit firewall rules. So if I just go to networking, uh, these are two networks. I see the network itself is disabled. Forget about network, it's okay. Can I edit the firewall rules? I cannot even create firewall rules. You see that clearly, folks? Is this part clear? So with a compute instance admin role, you cannot even create a firewall rule. So if you cannot create, forget about modifying it. You cannot even modify it. You cannot modify. Update is also not there. So that part is very clear. Thanks, folks, for confirming it. Now let's go create a virtual machine. Create a virtual machine. So I'll call this as VM with tags or something like, or GCE tag, something like that. And another one with GCE service account, something like that. That's it. So I'll also keep my Cloud Shell launched. I'll call this as GCE tag. Okay, GCE tag. And let's put it in Singapore because our VPC is only in Singapore. I'll use, let me see whether the template which we created last week, can we use it? Template which we created for our demos on VPC is there. As a compute instance admin, I can access the template is what it very clearly indicates. I'm going to call this as GCE-tag. Good. So everything is going to be set. Your your VM is going to be F1 micro. That's good. Then you get this message, which we know by this time why you get this message, because you are only having a compute instance admin role. You don't have any roles related to service account. What you have is basically one specific service account details, but you don't have the capability or you don't have the access to list all the service accounts which is there in this project. And that's the reason you get this message. And I had already mentioned why only the default service account shows. It's a bug. It's a bug in the UI. So it shows you don't have permission to view the service account. So if I just open up my Cloud Shell, if I do gcloud, first gcloud auth list, it's going to show it is Mahesh, and then if I do echo dev shell underscore project ID, it's going to show it is batch 6. Now if I do gcloud IAM service account list, it's going to throw me an error saying that you don't have the permission to list it. So, but if I do describe only that specific service account which we created, this one, because for this service account you gave the access, service account user access, then it's going to able to describe the details. It can describe that. But if you try to describe some other service account like default compute engine, let's try to describe it, you will not have that specific permission to describe also. Oh, sorry, I did not copy it. I'm copying it from my owner screen, folks. So if I do it, it's going to throw me definitely an error. You don't have the permission to describe basically. But if I use the other service account, it describes because you have explicitly given only to the service account. Okay, so this is a bug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a virtual machine which does not have a service account itself. So I don't want to give anything, no service account. So then there is no problem, but it's going to work as a VM which is isolated. It does not going to interact with any other services. Basically, the most important thing, change your network to the network which you wanted to use. VPC SA. VPC SA. That's it. Remaining other things I can leave it as default. Done. So what we did basically, we created a virtual machine with our template. The most important thing is we did it as no service account because we don't have access to all the service account. So we just gave this, and we use the network which we wanted. That's it. And we have not put our tags explicitly, folks. You can put the tags somewhere. Where do you put it? Is in the networking. Sorry, under networking you can put a network tag if you want. For now, where's the tag? Yeah, sorry, here you can put the tag. I'm not going to put the tag right now because I wanted to show you how things happen, how things works basically. So only the VPC has been selected and nothing else. Nothing else. Everything is default. So let's wait for this VM to come up. By the time this comes up, I'm going to create another VM. Another VM which should use basically the service account which we created. And we know we cannot create this in the UI. The reason is because of that bug. It does not show you the specific service account which you have access. Basically, it could be treated as bug. It could be treated as not a bug. The reason is whenever you do something at a project level, it expects you to know expects you to have the list of all the service account. Give a list, only then the UI is going to work. So but since we have not given that kind of a role, list all the service account but only access to one service account, we have not given that kind of a stuff, so we cannot do it in the UI. So if I try to create in the UI, every time it's going to show you don't have access to service account. So to have a workaround or a better approach is I'm not going to create it in the UI. I'm going to create it in my terminal. So that way I should be able to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do something like this. So I'll use G-Cloud. We're just creating a VM, folks. We're just creating a VM. So G-Cloud compute instances create. Let me call this as GCE hyphen SA, something like this. Then I need to mention all the details. Now sometimes the commands are going to be little long. You can use this trick of putting this slash so that you can nicely format it when you're doing it. This is how Google also does it. So it's a small trick, and I have mentioned it multiple times. You mention a specifier, you can put equals to or don't need to put it. Everything is going to work. Just a space is going to make it. So Singapore slash, what is the next specifier you want to mention? You can mention it. So the sub network, you need to mention the sub network. If you don't know the sub network, switch back to your network and get the sub network details in the owner screen. So if you say, can I see it in my Mahesh user and login, you can also see that there. That is also possible. So both are possible. So let me just show you. So this is what you need to mention. This is what you need to mention. But if you want to see it in this Edge browser itself, put a tab. You can do G-Cloud, G-Cloud compute subnetworks. So I get this network, subnetwork. Is there a command for that? I have to describe this. There should be a possibility. I am not remembering the command. So subnetworks. It should be able to show subnet. Okay, subnets. Okay, I have to mention something like this. Okay, if I do something like this, I learned a new command. I was not knowing this command, but that with that hyphen help or that manual page, we should be able to do it. So what we need to use is this one. So use this one in our subnetwork details. That's good. Then the most important thing which you need to mention here is what is the service account which you are going to use. So hyphen service account. We have done these things, folks, in our IAM class itself. It's just a recap of these commands. Service account, and let's give the scope. By default, when you use a custom service account, the scope is always all. So the complete scope is what you're going to do. So you can mention it as cloud platform, Google Cloud Platform. This way you're going to have the complete scope. So what this command is going to do basically is it's going to create a virtual machine with the name so and so GCP-SA in Singapore A zone. It's going to use this service account. Now, why we cannot do this in the UI? Because it does not list the service account. We don't have the permission to list all the service account. That's the reason we are explicitly using this in our command line itself, where it does not need to list, but if we know the service account details, we can do it. So let me click create or hit enter. Hope the command works. Okay, awesome. The VM got created. Now refresh it. The VMs are created. Now it's time for you to answer a question, folks. Now, if I click on GCE tag, if I click on SSH, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You saw the entire process, what we did. Will SSH work or not work? Okay. If it does not work, why? If you can please put it to every to me, it's going to be better instead of putting it to. Okay, good. So because you don't have the tag, it's not going to work. So, but for people who still are a little confused why it will not work, let's just show you that part. So hit on SSH to your GCE tag, and you will come to know basically it does not work. Let's just wait. This is one way. You directly click on SSH and verify it. And because we are mentioned as 0.0, so it should be able to connect from anywhere as long as I have the right credentials. So let's wait for it to show up. It's not going to show. Now it should be very clear. You cannot do it. This is one way of doing it. The second way of doing it is as a trick, which I usually do is click on these three dots, go to network details, folks. If you click on network details, you'll come to know what are the firewall rules are applied. What are the firewall rules which is going to apply? So it's going to show usually as a firewall policy, which is currently in preview, if I'm not wrong. This is something like you can put policies, firewall policies at an org level. Org level you can mention. So every uh, projects which you create will have this policy inherited. So if you click on firewall rules, there's no firewall rules itself. So if you scroll down and click on egress analysis, this is your implied firewall rule. It's your implied firewall rule. If you click on egress, again your implied firewall rules are going to be there. So basically you cannot SSH is what it indicates very clearly. Good. That's the key part. Now, what is the role which I have? I am a compute admin, compute instance admin there. So meaning I can go whenever I cannot SSH. What I can do is, because I can read all the firewall rules, I can read all the firewall rules. I simply go look at the firewall rules. Either I can apply this. If I try to apply this, the VM is in a different VPC. That's not of my interest. Then I have two firewall rules only to this VPC. So let me put at this thing VPC. Now only those two firewall rules I can do. Now this firewall rule I can change it if you want. Stop the VM, change it to this one. That is one way, but in the command line. The other easiest way is I just use this tag. Use this tag, go to my virtual machine. Go to my virtual machine, edit this GCE tag, and add the network tag. That's it. I was able to view and I can modify it because I can do the set tag. I have the set tag permission, which is part of your compute admin, instance admin role. Let's wait. Done. Now if I go back to my VM, before I click on SSH, you can verify it whether it's reflecting or not. So just click on this three dots, view network details. Firewall rules. You see the firewall rule which was created by you is applied. Now click on this ingress analysis. What was the one which you saw? First it was implied firewall rule. Now you see two firewall rules which is going to open up SSH and ping. Good. So this is a very handy option which you can leverage, folks. View network details, it's going to show you. Now definitely it should be able to SSH. So let's see whether it's going to SSH now. Awesome. So I am able to SSH, but I cannot see any buckets and all. The reason is this VM does not have a service account itself. It does not have any service account basically, which we had seen it in our service account class itself, auth list. Nothing is there. Good. So this part should be clear, right? Now, if you did not give the right this thing because of his role, a person can do something like this. Maybe who knows, there are some other specific firewall rules which you have put based on tag. He can easily put that and maybe access a database from here. So this part is that clear, folks. Even though when it was creating, it was not given, you can basically look into the details of the firewall rule, add the tag whenever you want, and it's going to start working. So that's the drawback of the tags. But if you have created a service account using the if you have created a virtual machine using service account, what's going to happen, basically it's attached to that specific service account, right? And he will not be able to view any other service account. If he's been given only access to one service account, if he wants to change it to something, he'll not be able to do it. So now, will this SSH work, folks? If I click on SSH SA, will it work or not? Will it work, folks? If you are in confusion, just click on these three dots, go to the network details. You'll come to know you should be able to do it. So click on firewall rules, because when you created the virtual machine, the service account which you used was this one. So definitely it's going to allow you. But if this user, if there is one more service account, firewall rule, for example, one more firewall rule, which is using a different service account, he will not be able to apply the changes here because he does not even have access to that service account. So whenever he needs to change the firewall rule, only if he has access to that service account also, then only he can use that firewall rule. Otherwise it's not going to be working. So that is a key part here. So, and whenever you're doing auto scaling, right, you're going to create virtual machines on the fly. So at that time, using service account based firewall rules is always going to be better. It's always going to be better. So let me just show you SSHing whether it's going to work or not. I'm there without doing anything. If I do G-Cloud auth list, it's going to show me that service account which we created, and I should be able to use gsutil ls. I may not be able to get this, but it's going to show me a permission denied because I cannot list all the buckets. But if you can provide a bucket, if you can provide a bucket details, it can list the objects inside it. Maybe I have to take the help of the owner this thing and go look for a bucket. Do I have a bucket first of all? Okay, I have this bucket. I'm just going to use this, which has basically two files. So if I just do, I should be able to list the objects with the role which I have with the service account, which is storage object viewer role. That's it, folks. So this was something which I wanted to share basically on the difference of using your service firewall rule, using a service account and using a tag. So if it's nothing put in the tag, I can easily put it. But when it comes to service account, it's not possible. Uh, any questions on this, folks? Let me just stop here for any questions. The key message is in production, always use firewall rules with a service account. Folks, any questions on this? Yes, no? Am I audible, folks? All of a sudden it went so silent. Yeah, thank you. Any questions, folks? Okay, it's clear. Good. No questions. Good. Fine. Let me just delete this VM. So as Mahesh, because I'm an compute instance admin, I can delete the VM. I can delete the VM, so I'm going to delete it. And there are a couple of new features which has come up, folks, which you can explore at a later point of time. And this is something which is usually asked for cost optimization, called as create a schedule. This is a cool feature where if you open it, right, it's going to tell which the VM which you want to stop it, when you want to start it. A new feature which I saw yesterday only. So this is a cool feature. Schedule when your VM should start, when your VM should stop, what time zone, how frequently you want to do it, which can save some cost. This is a cool feature. I've not explored it. Or did I stop it? I should have deleted it. This schedule is a cool feature. Explore it. I'll also try to explore it. Something like a cron. Yeah. But you don't need to write any extra script apart from configuring this. So that's the cool part. And you can use all your cron tab expressions there. All right, folks. So that's something which I wanted to share. Let me go back to my, so I don't need this anymore. I'm going to close my Explore Edge browser, go back to my VPC. So, and this VPC is not going to be required anymore. I'm just going to delete this VPC also. This VPC should get easily deleted. The reason is it has no attachment now. So when you delete the VPC, your firewall rule also gets deleted. So back to square one. What we started an hour ago is what we are coming back. The only reason I clean up the stuffs is basically we should not mess up with the stuffs and simply do look into that, check why when something went wrong. So if I do on concept, you just do that. Afterwards, you can dismantle it. So I have only basically a VPC and only one firewall rule, which allows me to do ICMP and ping. Simple so far. Now let's explore. If I just go to my, we saw VPC, we understood subnetwork, we understood firewall rules. And in firewall rules, different styles which we saw. One last thing which we need to know is uh, basically the connectivity test. When we did the connectivity test, last week we did not do connectivity test. Oh, sorry, we did not do it. Sorry, we did not do it. We'll do it this week. Uh, so if I explore, network is something which we have explored. Firewall rules we have explored. The next part which we are going to explore is routes. So when you click on routes, right, you're going to see some of the routes here. There are few routes. Okay, this is a bug. It is not okay. Now it got. So when I click on routes, right, without we never created a route. We are very much sure when we created our default our VPC custom VPC, we created VPC the subnetwork. We created firewall rules, but we never created a route. Routes are automatically created when you create a VPC. To just make it very clear, let me create a new VPC just to demonstrate the route concept. What is route? I'll show you, explain you in a minute. First, let me just create one VPC, nothing else, no firewall rules. So VPC route demo, only one subnetwork. I'll call it as subnetwork route SG, and I'm going to use IP something like 200.255.0/24. This is also should be working. So done, create. I just created a VPC, folks, nothing else. So this VPC is going to have two implicit firewall rule plus it's going to have a two routes automatically created by Google. What is a route? It's very simple. So just take the example of you commuting from your home to office, and assume you take a car or a bike. So first, and assume you live in an apartment. So the apartment door or the gate has to be opened first for you to take your car out of your apartment. Then you travel all along the road. Then you hit your office gate. Then the office gate should open based on your biometrics. So there are two places where there's a firewall rule. So outgoing traffic. So from your apartment, outgoing traffic should be allowed. So when you go to the office, the incoming traffic should be allowed. So the gates you can treat it as your firewall rule. But the path which you take to travel from one place to the another place, that's going to be your routes. So your car or yourself, you can treat it as a packet which travels. So that's your route in a very, very simple manner. So let's see whether there's a route created for us. It's always better to put a filter on what is the one which you're trying to do. VPC, not this one. I have to refresh the screen. Network, VPC. Whenever you have too many routes, always put this filter, folks. I still remember there was a question even on this kind of filtering actually. So these are two firewall rules which you get to see. So the one is basically a local route. So between, if you create VMs, so many VMs in this network itself, how the VMs is going to exchange their packets. For that, you're going to use this one. And the destination is going to be your CIDR range, basically, and priority 0. So this also is going to have priority. So 0 is the highest priority. And you cannot delete a local route, folks. This is very, very important. You cannot delete this. So it gets created along with your VPC. It gets deleted along with your VPC. That's the first route which you are going to have. For each subnetwork, you are going to have one. And there's going to be a common route which is going to be created for that VPC called as default route to internet. So which is a internet gateway. So this route is going to make sure it's going to communicate with the external world. So these two are going to be created automatically. And if you have a requirement, the VM should never ever reach the internet. It should be always private. you can delete this route, folks. You can just delete this route. The VM will never able to connect it to the internet. So two routes are going to be created. Now, if I use the other VPC, which is custom, so you see, because we have three subnetworks, London, Singapore, and US Central. So you will see those respective routes and a common gateway, default internet gateway route. So 4 is going to be there. So basically the number of routes by default is going to be the number of subnetworks plus 1. The plus 1 is basically your default internet gateway. This is the one which is going to allow you to communicate with the external world if your VM. So this is basically a route, and more on routes in our VPN demo. Mostly tomorrow, if I'm not wrong, we are going to discuss that part. So till now, is this clear? So few routes are automatically created. It's not like your firewall rules. Firewall rules are also going to have two implicit, but that's not going to help us to a great extent. But the routes will be definitely helpful to us. So without we doing anything, it's going to be there. Now, because we talked about routes and we also talked, there's a requirement of connecting to internet. Why don't we look into one more important stuff? uh, could be a possible interview question, like if you create a VM, what are the prerequisites, at least in GCP, folks, for that VM to connect to external world to or connect to internet? So if you wanted to see that, there's a very nice article where it shows, to have access to internet, you should have, if you just click on this, it's there in the this thing, you can see it, or if you want, you can also look into this document. So internet access, the criteria must be satisfied for an instance to have the outgoing internet access. What are the criteria? The first, it's totally three criterias, or four criterias, you can say it as. Three is better, I would say. The network the network must have valid default network internet, sorry, must have a valid default internet gateway route or a custom route whose destination IP is 0.0.0. This route defines the path to the world. So if I just go back, this is what it is doing. So the default the destination IP should be this one, and the next hop, the next jump should be to gateway, internet gateway, which we satisfy in any network. No problem, we satisfy this. The second rule is, firewall rules must allow egress traffic. Egress traffic should be allowed. So is this something going to be fulfilled, folks? Allow egress traffic for the instance unless overridden by a higher priority. Implied allow rule for the egress permits this. So this is also going to be already implied. So two rules to connect to internet is already implicit. You don't need to do anything explicitly, it's already there. The last one is basically, one of the following must be true, either one of them. The instance must have an external IP address. An external IP address must be assigned to the instance when it has been created. Either it should have an external IP address, that's what we have been doing so far, or it should be able to have something called as network address translation, which we have not looked into it. We are going to look into it maybe in next Saturday's class. So either one of them is important. So basically, when it comes to internet, you need to have these criteria fulfilled. If you don't have this, either one of them, you are not going to have it. Meaning, you have an external IP address, you have the outbound firewall rule, but you have deleted your gateway, default gateway, you will not be able to communicate. Is there a question, folks? Okay. Okay, if there's no question, I'll resume back. All right, so that's something on the route at a very, very high level, and I have not shown how to create a route for a specific reason. We did not had a need to create a route. That's the main reason. But when need arises, we'll definitely create a route. So why we learned firewall rule? There was a need. We were not able to SSH, so that's why we created a firewall rule. So we are not going to create a route because we don't have a need for it, at least as of today. Maybe tomorrow we may have a need. At that time, I'll show you how to create firewall rule. Sorry, routes. So one last thing, we may use the default VPC for some times. So I'm just going to create a default VPC quickly. So default, automatic, all the 25 regions are going to come. And if you want, have those 4 firewall rules with 2 implied firewall rules created. Click on create. The firewall rules, routes, everything is going to be used. So done. So I have my default VPC, I have my 2 custom VPC. One last thing which I want to share, and we'll jump into our slides. A default VPC is always going to be in auto mode. Uh, a auto mode VPC can be converted into a custom mode, possible. But a custom mode VPC cannot be converted into auto mode. So another important stuff which you need to remember. So with this, let me just jump back to my slides. A summary of what we learned from last Saturday till today basically are VPC, including their associated routes and firewall rules, are global resource. VPC is global, firewall rules route is global. A route is also going to be applied to a VPC, so it's going to be also global. The next thing is the number of VPCs which you can create is going to be bound by your quota. So by default, even in your free trial account, you can have a quota of 5 only. So only 5 VPCs is what you create. So this is another valid reason why you should delete your default VPC, folks. Assume you are learning. In your free trial, you cannot increase quota. Everybody knows it. And you are learning. And for your learning, you may need more VPCs. There's a specific need, maybe. That's the reason. Now, if you are not going to use default VPC, as per the best practice, why do you want to keep it? Because you anyway have a quota of 5. So let me just show you that quota stuff. We have already three VPCs in our project. So if I go to my quota, I will see basically 3 is already used. I'm only left with 2, and this is only this is a default one, folks. uh, I would say only 1 VPC is enough in a project. 1 or 2 is enough. But if you have a different requirement altogether where you're creating multiple VPCs, then you need to keep this thing in mind, the quota. So let me just open up my quota stuff. So if I put compute engine API network, you see I can create up to 5. 3 are already currently used, 2 are left. So if I try to create the 6th one, I'll get a quota issue. This could be also a possible question, folks. These kind of stuffs, very small stuff, because this is networking, right? You should be aware that how much you are going to have. I don't know if it is for me or also there is a delay in the screen sharing. Others are having any issues, folks? Is there a screen lag which you see? Is there a lag in the screen sharing? Okay. It's good is what people say, Kumar. So the quota is at a project level. Yes, Saman, the project is the quota is always at a project level. Whatever you see in GCP is going to be at a project level. Maybe Kumar, try just logging off and logging in during the break time. It should be good. So sub networks, we understood it's going to be at a regional level. So sub networks are regional. VPC firewall rule routes are global. And there are two types of VPCs which we create, custom and auto mode. And the default VPC which you create is going to be in auto mode. We know that. Traffic to and from can be controlled by your firewall rules, and you are going to have two firewall rules which is implied. And every network when you create with a sub network, it's going to have two auto generated routes. One to the default internet gateway, the other one's for the local route, which you cannot delete it. And the remaining three is something which I added recently, which we are going to discuss once we come back from the break. So we'll take a 10 minutes break. Once we come back, we'll understand what is this VPC expansion, or this, to be very specific, subnetwork expansion. How much I can expand? What is the upper limit? What is the lower limit? All those things we are going to see. The last 3 points are very, very important. So I'm going to show you a demonstration itself so that it gets registered very well. Okay. So let's take a break. Oh, where's my timer? So let's take a break, folks. Let me stop the recording first.
This conference will now be recorded.
So before the break, we saw some more concepts about firewall rule, routes, all those things. So I had tried to put it as a summary page here. So the last before we understand it, we'll just update our implementation cheat sheet about why you should not have default VPC. One of the reasons is quota. So one of the reasons is quota. Let's add that part. We had some few points, if I remember. Avoid default VPC. Another point is because you don't want to get into that hassle of increasing the quota, all those things. If you only need only 5 VPCs, and of which default you are not going to use, if you are not going to use, why you want to keep it? Just delete it, because the default VPC quota per project, it's always per project, is 5. Okay, that's something which I wanted to add. Now, instead of exploring this way, right, the last 3 options, let's take a use case, folks. Let's take a use case. I'll try to type that use case. You have MIG. Okay, MIG, the same demonstration which you have, which we did. The same thing is, we are not going to do the demo one more time. Assume for that MIG you need to have network, and you should have sub network, all those things. So my requirement is, I have a VPC. Sorry, let me increase the font. So I have VPC MIG. I have 3 subnetworks. Subnetwork SG, London, and US Central. The requirement which I have is basically 3 MIGs are there. So I can create instance groups in Singapore, London, and US Central. But the requirement which I have is, customer has mentioned, I cannot go beyond 4 VMs per region. That's my limit, folks. This is what they want to do. Meaning in Singapore, 4 VMs. 5th VM should never be possible to create itself. Same thing, London and US Central. Basically, meaning 12. What we have, we are going to achieve that. So entire globally, 12 VMs only should be created. Basically, at a regional level, I can only create per region, I can only create 4 VMs. This is the requirement. Now, if you were to achieve this, how will you achieve it, folks? Please change your mode to only to Mahesh or to the presenter, and let me know the stuff. So hope the question is clear. MIG demo, but the requirement is per region. You cannot simply keep on scaling. You want to put a limit of only 4 VMs only. You cannot go beyond that. What could be the option which you can use? Basically, You want to reduce your quota, I will mention the first option, the easiest option. Mention the reduce the quota, because the quota is per region, it is 8. So I'm going to make it as reduce the quota. So first option is reduce the quota. I never tried reducing the quota, folks. So I'm not sure. Reduce the quota to 4 per region. What I'm saying this is, if I go to my quota, look at CPUs. So you see this CPUs. Every region can, okay, this is 8 vCPUs, 8 vCPUs. I'm not doing it with CPUs, okay. Auto scaling limit, okay, that's a good option. So reduce the quota, that is one option. Deepak is saying change your auto scaling. In your auto scaling, you will mention min and max, right? Min equal to 1 and max equal to 4. Is this what you are saying, Deepak? Okay, that's one option. While creating the VM, use image set to 4 per region. Yes, Mangesh. So that's the another option. Anil has a different one. Anil has the actual answer, which was hinting towards this one. So another option is more towards networking side. So you don't play around with any auto scaling or anything. Basically, we go to the foundation. All these things works because you have a network. You have a network which is going to be going to accommodate these many VMs. So what we will do is we will start with our VPC making, or the subnetwork making small, make it very small. So I need only 4 VMs. I need only 4 VMs in each region. Basically, the subnetwork, you should make sure the range which you are going to put is going to be very small. That is the whole int. That's going to give us an explanation for this /29 or something. What is why /29? Yes, Anil Kumar. So that's correct. Anil Kumar and Anil B had got the right answer. So I'll show you what is this basically. So we are going to fulfill this requirement by not touching the quota, by not touching the auto scaling settings, but by changing the foundation itself, our network and subnetwork. So we are going to do something with our subnetwork. So what we are going to do for this one is, there is information about reserved IPs, 4 reserved IPs, yeah, here itself. So if I just go here, reserved IPs in a subnetwork. Whenever you create a subnetwork, right, there are 4 IPs which we had talked at a very, very high level last week. So whenever you create subnetwork, there's going to be a subnetwork mask, the /24, those things. So whenever you create such things, right, you will have 4 IPs already reserved by Google. So it's going to be reserved, so you cannot use it. What is the first one? The first one is going to be your first address is your primary range. So 10.21, sorry, 10.1. If your CIDR range is 10.1.2.0/24, it's going to be the network. The next one is going to be your default gateway, which is again going to be reserved. So if I just go here, if you go to any VPC, okay, you see this is my CIDR range. The second one is always going to be reserved by my default gateway. It's going to be taken. The third one is going to be basically for broadcasting. The last one is for broadcast IP 10.1.2.255. Last but one is reserved for some future purpose, if I'm not wrong. So 4 are already taken, always going to be taken by Google. So now if I just go to my calculator, CIDR calculator, so meaning if I put /32 means only one IP is what I can have. /30 means 2 IP. So I have to have minimum 4 is already reserved, plus 4 is what you need, as Anil is mentioning, Anil Kumar is mentioning. You should totally have the the network subnetwork mask which can create minimum 8 IPs. So the one which is going to do that is 2 power 8. Sorry, 2 power. What is that? 2 power. 2 power 4. Oh my bad. 1 minute. Uh, so so 2 power. Sorry, 2 power 3. 2 power 3. Basically, if you do it, you're going to get, yes, thank you folks. 2 power 3 is going to make it. So meaning only 3 bits are available for IP creations. So slash 29, if you use as a subnetwork mask, you will get a total IP count of 8, where 4 is going to be taken by Google itself as per the documentation, and the remaining 4 is going to be available for you. So the fifth one, when you try to create, it's going to give you an error saying that quota exceeded. So that way, you're going to be controlled by totally by your VM. So this is sometimes really helpful, where, for example, if you assume you have given a service account SA which has compute instance admin role and service account user role. It has only these two roles. Okay. Now this service account has a key, and this key is compromised. Somebody gets the access. Now this person can keep on creating virtual machines, but how much he can create? He can only create 4, because he cannot modify the network. Meaning, the network cannot be modified because it's only basically related. Can he do the modification? Let me see. If I go, yeah, he can modify it. Maybe some other role we have to consider. Uh, can he modify the network roles? Compute dot network or subnetwork. Okay, subnetwork update. Who can do it? Okay, okay, he cannot do that. So assuming compute instance admin is the role and service account user role is there. So this key is compromised. The hacker or the bad guy can only create maximum 4 VMs. If no VMs are created, if all VMs are created, even if he gets the access, right, he cannot create any VMs. It's because you're putting a constraint in your foundation, which is your VPC. So let's see this in action by doing a small demonstration where I'll create my fourth VPC and see what is going to happen. Okay, so I'll call this as VPC expansion. It's not VPC actually. VPC subnet. I'll call it as subnet. Okay, just call it as VPC. I'll just call it as VPC1, folks. So description: subnet expansion concept. Call this as subnet constrained SG. So what I'm going to do, as per the subnetwork mask, it has to be /29. You use whatever the range you want. You can use class A, class B, class C, because everything is going to support /29. You can choose anything of your choice. So if you want 172, we don't use it very often. Let's use it. This is the thing which I'm going to mention. Basically, /29 is my range. Done. Click on create. And I'm not going to create firewall rules. The demo is not to log into a VM, but the demo is mostly to see whether I can create a VM or not. So if I refresh my screen, the VPC should be created. Yes, the VPC is created. 4 is going to be taken. Remaining 4 is going to be there. So remaining 4 is going to be there because we have mask which we have put is /29. Now let's go ahead and create totally 4 VMs, folks. 4 VMs. 4 VMs is going to take time. So we'll try to use some kind of a little bit of an automation. So what I will do is go to my VM screen. Uh, I'll create only one VM first, get some commands, then show you what I can use basically. And this VMs which you are going to use, the IP which you create, the range, this is basically for your internal IP, folks. The external IP has no connect here. So don't even worry about the external IP. So this is only the internal IP of your VMs basically. So if I use my template, use a temp. The template is used only so that I can save some couple of clicks. What I'm going to do is basically select this specific network. You have 4 networks. Select VPC1 and it's going to show subnet constraint. And I don't even need an external IP address for this demonstration. I don't even need it. So I'm going to use only internal IP. Okay. So if you want to know the command line equivalent of it, if you don't need an external IP, you should mention no address. And your subnetwork should be something like this. And your machine type, if you want, you have to mention it like this. So I'm going to use these things for my demonstration purpose. So what I will do is go back, create 4 VMs in one shot. Create 4 VMs in one shot. I guess we had seen it if I'm not wrong. But if you have not seen it or you cannot recollect it, this is going to be a good one. Instances create, right? We are going to create VM1, VM2, VM3 with a specific configuration and do it. Let me just do it. So G-Cloud compute instances create VM1, VM2, VM3, VM4. What are the details? This all I wanted in Singapore A zone. A zone with some of the details which I copied. Machine type F1 micro, subnetwork is this. I don't need an external IP address. So hit enter and we should have our 4 VMs created in next few seconds. So if I refresh this, yeah, 4 VMs are provisioned. I have my 4 VMs created and all are using, if I select my network, all are using my VPC1, meaning the VPC is already, the subnetwork basically is already exhausted, folks. 4 VMs is what you can have. So why the 4th one is not coming up? Okay. So now you have created 4 IPs. So based on your subnetwork mask, all 8 are already consumed. Now, if I go ahead and try to create a 5th one, what's going to happen? Let's see it. So I'm going to remove. Do this and let's see what's going to throw as a message. It's going to show the pool is exhausted. So you see this IP space is exhausted. Now, what will you do, folks, in this case? So meaning this is the capacity of your subnetwork. Only 8 VMs it can do because it's a /29 and 4 is reserved. 4 you already created. Now, even if you are an admin, without doing a change in your subnetwork, you cannot do anything. I'm already an owner. I cannot do it. So dynamically, can we increase the sub network? Unfortunately, you don't have it. Maybe for a security reason, Anil Kumar, that could be a good feature, I would say. Auto scaling your or dynamically change your sub network. That is not possible. So you have to manually go and change your or expand your network. So if it is /29, it's a smaller network. So make it as /28. If I make /28, what I can do basically, if I just do 8, 4 bits are available, 2 power 4, 16 IP address I can allocate. So this is called as basically, that's what I mean to say. Okay, you wanted to increase it manually. So you can increase it. So you can expand your sub network, but it is not automatically done by the system. You have to manually do it. So manually do it. So let's try to do this. So I can hit on this sub network, edit. Uh, Basically, this is like our age only, folks. Uh, it's like our age. Age cannot be reduced. It can only increase. Similarly, your disk, the disk size can only be increased, cannot be reduced. Same is the case. You cannot make it still further less. The sub network cannot be shrunk. If I try to do it, it's going to throw me an error. Uh, it should be a superset of the current IP, not the subset. So meaning I cannot make it 30. I have to make it as, and the smallest subnetwork which you can have in GCP is /29, the mask. So it has to be 28. I can make it as 28. It works. Now if I click on save, I have expanded my subnetwork basically to incorporate 8 more IPs. 8 more IPs I can have basically. Done. Now if I go and run this command, it's going to work. It's going to work. Done. And the reason why I did not use without external IP addresses, there is a quota on how many VMs I can have with external IP address. 4 is my understanding per region. So the fifth VM, if I create with an external IP address, it's not going to show, it's going to show some different quota saying that the IPs are exhaust, the IPs quota is over. That's the external IP quota. So I can create 4 more if you want. I can create 4 more, 3 more, sorry. I can create 3 more. It's going to come up. 6. This is the coolest command I really like. Instances, that plural expansion, you get it. So you should be able to create it, the VMs. So totally you are using 8. You are using 8 VMs in Singapore A. 4 is already reserved. 12 is already used. So you are left with 4 more IPs, which you can use and create it. But unfortunately, in your free trial, per region, you can create only 8 vCPUs. Now I have already created, if I click on my machine type, so these are all going to be 1 vCPU. So 8 vCPUs already used. So I cannot create anything further. So if I create now one more, like the 9th VM, it's going to show me basically nothing to do with the network. It's going to show the quota per region, the number of CPUs which you can create in a region, you have already exceeded. That's what it's going to show. So let's wait and see the output. You see this region CPUs quota exceeded. So always playing with the quota is very, very important. So make sure you use this effectively. If you want to do the demo, put a constraint like I don't want any external IP address. That way you should be able to do it. So expansion is possible. Now, because it was your default VPC, custom VPC, you were able to expand it very easily. You were able to expand it, this one, from slash, if I just collapse this. From slash 29, you were able to make it slash what? Um, slash 28. You want to still do it? You can. Till what you can expand? What is the range, folks, for class B? How much you can expand to the mask, the subnetwork mask? If you go back to your documentation and other slides, if you see, usually it is going to be, if I can show you that, why don't I, let me just go back. Class B, the max which you can go is slash 12 is your subnetwork mask. So because I'm using 172, I can go up to slash 12. From slash 29 till slash 12, I can easily go. Let me just show you that. So I change this to, I can change it. And if you see, folks, my VMs are still running. My VMs are still running. I can expand my VPC without impacting the existing VMs. This is a cool feature, I would say. I'm not sure this is going to be something unique, but people with the non-networking background, this is an important thing for you to know. So the network expansion is not going to impact your existing VMs. You can expand it easily. Now, if you see my VPC, I have expanded it. Now, beyond this, can I expand? No, you cannot expand it. I can just show you that. Class B, it's going to be slash 12 is the last one which you can have. So if I make it as uh, invalid, you enter the lowest IP in the subnetwork. So you cannot do that. So basically, when you're expanding a custom VPC, the max we can expand is till the allowed subnetwork. For example, if it's class B, it's going to be class slash 12. If it's class C, it's going to be slash 16. And if it's class A, it's going to be slash 8. This is what you get it. But when it comes to default VPC, another reason why you should avoid it is if you go to default VPC, you can also expand it. You can also expand your default VPC. For example, US Central slash 20, meaning the first 12, first 20 bits are reserved by the network, remaining 12 bits are available. So 4096 IPs is what you can allocate. Now, if you want to still expand it, you can do it. You can do it because it is class. Because it's class A, you may think, can I make something like this? It's going to throw an error. It's going to throw an error. The reason is they have put because they are going to use class A for future purpose also, and you're going to get an overlapping stuff. So max which you can expand when it comes to sub default VPC is slash 16. This is the max you can expand it to. So 2 power 16, roughly around 65,000 IPs is what you can allocate if you are expanding your default VPC. So this is another constraint. So you cannot be expanded beyond slash 16. It starts with slash 20, that is fixed. You can expand it to slash 16. So 2 power 16, you have IPs to be allocated. You can allocate it. So I can just expand it to show that it works. Expanded. So only my US Central is expanded. All other things are slash 20. I cannot go beyond slash 16. Okay. So this is something which I wanted to show you. I could have just explained it in words, but I thought I'll show you a demonstration. So custom VPC can be expanded to the IP range, the RFC 1918 standard range, what you have, slash 8 for class A, slash 12 for class B and /16 for your class C ranges. Auto mode can be only till /16 basically, and the smallest subnetwork mask which you can use is /19 /29. So where 4 IPs are reserved. Is this part clear, folks? Okay, there was a question. Okay, ignore it. Okay, all right. So it was more of demos, but the concept was only put in one single slide. So 2 or I guess more than 4 hours we spent on the only this slide, so which made us help the stuff. So for class A, after 10, can I enter any number? If it's what VPC, what mode you want to create, Mangesh? Auto mode or custom mode? In DS, auto mode. In auto mode, you cannot. So the reason is, in auto mode, you cannot create your IP itself. So when I create a VPC and put it in automatic, the IPs are always fixed. You don't have that luxury of putting your own address. So it is going to be fixed. So you cannot do that. But in your custom mode, you can. So in your custom mode, you can see, you can put it. You can put 0.10.1. We have already done that. It is possible. Any other questions, folks? Any other questions? Last, before we move to the next part, we have to delete it. So it's better we delete it. So let's use a script itself. One shot. Delete everything. Delete VM1, VM2. Unfortunately, this we could have written a better script. This should be fine for now. 7 VM8. Everything else is not required. Quietly do it. I don't want a prompt. So it's going to clean up the stuffs. It's going to clean up the stuffs in next few minutes. Now let's move on to the next part, folks. Now you saw the concept of VPC. Basically the VPC, subnetwork, firewall rules, routes, and some unique features of auto mode and custom mode. Now this looks for some people or some organization a overkill. You cannot expect every individual to master networking, right? It's going to be a little difficult. So it's going to be difficult. You may be a great DBA, a great data scientist, very good at something other components, but not at networking. Okay, there's one question. Since we are able to create multiple VMs using changing a side, any disadvantage? So there's nothing like a disadvantage. It's always as a best practice. Start your subnetwork small, because at any point of time, Mangesh, you can expand your subnetwork. So don't make your subnetwork very large. Maybe I can add this as a best practice itself. So always have a smaller network. Smaller network is always going to be better. Whenever you need, you can expand it. But if you have a bigger network and you want to constrain it, it is not possible. So always have a smaller network. Whenever you need, expand it. Basically, auto scaling kind of a concept only, but it sorry, auto scale up basically. You cannot shrink a subnetwork. That is not possible. I showed you that Anil B. So you cannot shrink it. Only expansion is possible. Always have a smaller subnetwork, like /29, and if needed, expand it. This could be a best practice. So avoid having a larger network, because the larger network is going to have, you cannot shrink it. Second, if somebody does not, if you have created a very large quota, somebody out of this thing creates n number of VMs, you will have issues again. So you will have a huge bill. So you can control the billing totally at your VPC by this way. This is going to be a good choice. Or if the hack happens, like the one which I mentioned, so that can also be avoided with all these things. All right. So okay, VMs are deleted. Good. Now going back to our slides. Now we saw our networking concept. Um, Even though if you are coming from a networking background, the stuffs which we saw could have been a cakewalk for you. If you have not, I guess I have tried to explain you some concept which should have been now clearer, at least the basic networking concepts. But after a week or 2 weeks, if I ask you, you would have definitely little forgotten it. It's a human tendency there. So because the networking is something new, only when you start exploring again and again, your concept becomes clear. If you say take the same thing to an organization level also, you will have problems. You cannot expect everybody to know networking concept, and in an organization, not everybody is going to open up a firewall rule, modify all those things. So you need to have some kind of a centralized system where there is a dedicated set of team expertise, network experts who can do this for us, because our focus is more on having a website, a database, something of that sort. Our focus is not on network. So just leave the best part to the experts who can do it. So if you were to have something of that sort, you will, 1 minute, I'll come back to this. You will use something called a shared VPC. So you will use something called a shared VPC. I'll talk about this slide later, folks, maybe tomorrow. So something on shared VPC. So this one is a centralized networking option. As per my understanding, this feature is not available in other clouds, especially AWS and Azure. In GCP, you get a feature called a shared VPC, which means the VPC is itself is shared. The subnetworks which you create, the firewall rules, that is going to be shared between multiple GCP projects. Very cool feature. So what is the advantage? It's going to be one networking team who's going to manage it, and you can use it in different projects. So just take the real example. If you have an organization, there's going to be definitely an IT team. Under that IT team, there's going to be a subdivision called as networking team. They are the one who's going to do all the networking for your organization, right, in on-prem. The same thing if you want to have in GCP, what you create is you create one project. In that project, you create a normal VPC. That VPC, the subnetworks, all those things, you share it with other projects in the same organization. So that way, what you are going to do is your network overhead is going to be removed totally. So you don't need to worry about VPC, all those things. Somebody else is going to manage it for you, which is really a cool feature. So, but there are some prerequisites. You need to have a organization node. Without having an organization node, you cannot create shared VPC. Meaning, this is the only one of the couple of demos which you cannot do. Another demo which you cannot use with your free trial is Cloud Armor, which we'll talk later. Shared VPC is something which you cannot do in your uh, free trial account. If you create a domain, you can do it. So I don't want you to do it. If you want, you can create a domain and create it. It's up to you. But if you don't want to have a domain and just for shared VPC you want to do it, what we will do is we'll do a demonstration as slow as possible, which each steps, and see how this works. Basically a VPC, same concept, firewall rules, subnetworks, all those things, but I don't get my hands dirty. There's going to be one team who does this, and I'm going to just consume that network and our subnetwork and play around with it. So that's what we are going to do. And there's a nice diagram which I can show first and then go to the explanation. So this is a nice diagram, folks. So what this does basically is there is a project, a GCP project called as host project. There is another project called as service project A, service project B. So three GCP projects. Now we know without a network, you cannot create VMs. Now, if you see service project A, service project B can create VMs. How? Because they use the subnetwork from host project. So this is like subnetwork as a service or VPC as a service. So you're going to consume the VPC created in another project. There are certain process for that, some access which you need to give. Once you do that, VM the instance A and instance B can consume the specific subnetwork and they can create VMs. Now, if you want to open up any firewall rule, you don't touch project A, service project A or service project B. You only modify this network. The network name of the network is called as shared VPC network. You can give any name. So you go modify everything in this. It's a centralized networking stuff. And if you work very closely with Googlers, all those things for any RFPs or anything, the design, one of the slide is going to be definitely on shared VPC. They always recommend this because it's going to be centralized, right? Large organization always expects you to have shared VPC stuff there. So I did a couple of implementation using the shared VPC. It was really a good option so that and there are certain stuffs which you cannot use shared VPC. We'll also see that where it is not going to work. Uh, but wherever you have a bigger organization and there is very less people who know networking skills, for such organization, shared VPC is going to be really a good fit. You create the network, all the stuffs is going to be handled by one team and the other team does not even need to worry about it. That's it. So, and you may have in your and this all things, this gray box is one organization, folks, this gray color. And you may have some projects which is standalone, something like a confidential project, maybe the payroll, a payroll department, they don't want to share anything, so they have a standalone project, they have their own VPC. This is also possible. So in this organization, totally 4 projects are there. One is a host project, which shares its VPC or subnetwork with service project A, service project B, and there's a standalone project which is totally isolated. But for this host project to work, shared VPC concept to work, you should have an organization node. That's very important. So how do I know whether it really works or not? Simple. Just go to your VPC. If you mouse over, you will have shared VPC as an option. So if you just click on that, you will get a message if you are in a free trial. So if I click on my this thing, I don't have an organization because it's a free trial account. Free trial account and does not have an org node configured. So it does not mean you have to have a paid account. Even in a free trial account, if you add an organization node, basically you need a domain, you can create it. So that's what I have done it. I'm going to show you that. So if you don't have an org node, forget about free trial or anything. So if you don't have an organization node, you cannot create shared VPC. Simple. So that's what it shows. Shared VPC is only available for projects within an organization. So it's within the organization only you can do it. So you need to have an org node. So, and in free trial, or if you have not done anything with your free trial, you will definitely not have it. So you cannot do this lab, only this demonstration in your free trial. If you have registered for an account, you have a domain, existing domain, if you want, you can use it. That's another part. But most of us would not have registered or have a domain. So I would say, let's just do the demonstration slowly and understand the concept. Okay. So for this, I will not use this project. I'll use a different project. So I have to log in. Oh, I have to open up my Edge browser, folks. I got this domain .tech for a very cheap price, like 75 Indian rupee. And it was only, and it was some offer going on. So I thought I'll use this as only for this demonstration. Shared VPC. Now, if I first show you the organization node. This is my organization node, folks. I have an org node because I have a domain registered and I have followed the process to have this added as my org node. Learn GCP with Mahesh.tech is the org name, and I have 3 projects: host project, service project A, service project B. Something very similar to what you saw in the diagram. Trying to replicate the same thing, same concept. That's it. So I have my org node. Now let me just go inside each and every project and show you the VPC, how many VPCs I have. So let me first go to my host project. And I'm going to primarily deal with VPC, uh, compute engine, and IAM. So I have already bookmarked these things or pinned it. So if I just go to VPC, I have only one VPC, folks. Let me just zoom this. Okay, let's scroll up. So I have one VPC. The name can be anything, folks. I have three subnetworks. So Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore. And I have used all the three classes just for a easy understanding. Then do I have firewall rules? No, I don't have any firewall rules. This is the background. Now let me switch my project to service project service project A. You can see it is service project A. There's no VPC. There's no VPC. Good. Service project B also does not have. So if it does not have a VPC, 300% sure you will not have a route, you will not have a firewall rule. If you're still curious, you can just click on this routes and you will see nothing is going to be there. If you click on firewall rules, nothing is going to be there. So no firewall rules, no routes, no VPC, no subnetworks in your service project, meaning it is free from all networking hurdles, basically. So is this part clear, folks? The context, basically the three projects, only one project has a VPC. None of the other projects have a VPC. So any questions on this context itself, first of all? Okay, no questions. Fine. So meaning only host project has a VPC. Based on our understanding, if I go create a VM in host project, either in one of those three subnetworks, definitely it's going to create. Uh, definitely it's going to create. Anybody has a thought whether it's not going to create or not in host project, folks? It has a VPC. Any thoughts whether we will be able to create it or not? Any second thought? We cannot create it. Let me know. To make it very clear, I can create it in Taiwan. I'm in host project. So I'm in host project. If I click quickly create a VM, it shows shared VPC. It automatically picks the subnetwork because of my region. If I create a VM, it gets created. That's my understanding. Whether I can SSH or not, it's going to be based on my firewall rule. We can look into that later. And actually, there's no firewall rule itself, so I cannot SSH basically. So let's see whether in my host project, I can create a VM. Created. So good. Let me just delete it. Now, can I create a VM in my service project, folks? Now, can I create it? What's going to be the issue? Yes, Kumar, you're correct. Can I create a VM in my service project A, service project B? So I'm going to switch to my service project A. If I go ahead and create it, it will throw me an error. Dude, you don't have a VPC itself and a subnetwork. I cannot even create it. So if I create something in same, so if I just go to my Taiwan, if I go to my network, it's going to show you don't have a network and a subnetwork. You don't have anything. Yes, can create if subnetwork is shared with them. That is the next. That's a solution actually that it's possible. Uh, so currently, just don't go with the name, folks. The VPC name is shared VPC. Just because it's shared VPC, it's not shared already. I can give any name. So, but the VPC is not even shared here. So the background is I don't have a VPC or a VPC which is shared with me. So I cannot create in the current stage. So in my service project A, in my service project B, if I try to do it, I cannot create it in the current context with nothing being shared. Once it shares, that's the solution which we are going to find. With the background which we have seen, service project A and service project B will not be able to create it itself. So it's going to throw an error if you create it in any of these two projects. Till here is the concept clear, folks. Without VPC, it's not possible. We have seen it n number of times. Now also we are seeing it's going to be proven again. Without a VPC, you cannot have it. But we don't want to create VPC firewall rules because for some people it looks very difficult. So that's the reason we are going with something called a shared VPC, where you have a VPC configured once, but you consume it in multiple projects. Okay, so that's what we are going to do now. So what we are going to do now is, so you got the context right now. Service project A, service, maybe I can open 3 tabs, folks. uh, Duplicate, duplicate. So I'll have all 3 projects opened so that you have a better idea. So if I just go to my VPC, okay, folks. Now you have host project, you have VPC, we can create VMs. Service project A, we don't have any VPC, we cannot create VMs. Same is the case with service project B. Now the solution for this is basically shared VPC. How we are going to do it is basically is what we are going to do. Before we do anything, if I just go to my IAM, if I go to my IAM, I'm the owner of this project. So you see Mahesh, I'm the owner of this project. So I don't want to do as an owner to show this demonstration. So what I'm going to do basically is we are going to use the other user. So meaning we will add a user to service project. And if I see service project also, sorry, with owner, right, it's not going to be so easy good to show you the concept there. So I thought I'll use, so in service project also Mahesh is the owner in all the service project. So what we are going to do is add a user uh, which is nothing but our main user. Where is my this thing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this learn GCP 2028 user. Copy the email ID, and if I refresh the screen, if you currently see, these are the projects which I have. There's no service project A, service project B available. Okay, that's the background. What I will do is, to make this demo more interesting, in my service project A and in my service project B, I'm going to add this user with a role specifically called as compute network admin. What is this going to do? Let's see it. So under compute network admin, full control of compute engine networking resource, VPC creation, subnetworks, all those things. But firewall rule, you cannot modify it. Done. Similarly to my service project B. So do the same thing. Network admin, save it. Done. If you are very curious to know what this network admin can do, no problem. Just quickly go to your uh, roles, search for that. This is the easiest way which you can do. Not every role you can have an understanding by the name itself. By just looking into that, you can come to know network admin. Please note, this user can only create VPC, subnetworks, all those things. Routes also, I'm not sure. So routes can be created, deleted, but when it comes to firewall rules can be only you can get the details of the firewall and list it, but you cannot create it. Network subnet subnetworks, I can create it. I can create a network VPC, I can delete a VPC, I can also create a subnetwork. Subnetworks also can be created. So that is the role which this has. Basically, that is what we have given to this user. Going back to VPCs, if I go to, so far is it clear, folks? We know three projects are there. Two projects are service project. They don't have a network. What we have done is only give a user compute network admin role. Why compute network admin role specifically? You'll get that answered once we do the shared VPC demonstration. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. Till now, is it clear, folks? I
Ma-
want this to be very clear if there, because there's going to be question. Yeah,
Manish, is there any reason if it is shared network, why we are adding as in the project A and project B rather than adding under host actually?
that part you'll get it answered once we finish the demo.
Okay,
That
okay,
you
thank
keep
you.
it. That you keep it. Uh, Anything else? Fine. Now, that's the activity which you have to do it in your service project. Only that is the only activity. Now, come to your host project. Go ahead and see whether that error message is at least gone. When I go to my VPC, shared VPC, there was a message, right? Not an error message, it's an information. So if you just see your other screen where it is Mahesh, sorry, learn.gcp 2020-28 user, which is using which is not having an org node, it shows shared VPC is only available for projects within an organization. So if I click on org, I don't have an org node. But in the other browser, which is my Edge browser, I have an org node. Because I have an org node, I get a different message. Shared VPC lets you share sub networks. Please note, folks, it's the sub networks. To be very specific, it should have been a shared sub network, should be the name actually, but they have given it as shared VPCs. Only sub networks is what you are going to share with the other projects. And please note, the other projects should be in the same organization. So everything is within the organization, folks. Okay, you can create resources like VMs on those subnetworks. So let's go ahead and set it up. And when you set up the shared VPC, right, the project in which you set it up, that project becomes the host project. Let me just repeat, in which project you are in, if you go ahead and set up, maybe for example, if I am in service project A, and if I go to shared VPC, and if I set it up here, service project A is going to be my host project, which is going to host my VPC and subnetworks and firewall rules. So be very specific in which project you want to create it. Okay. If you make a mistake, no problem. You can delete it and you can recreate it. There's no constraint like you cannot redo it again, not like our app engine or data store or file store. So you can do it n number of times. So, but be very specific in which project you are going to do. So I'm in my host project, which is called as learned now. In that, I'm going to set it up. So let me click on setup. So it's only 3 steps, folks. Enable the host project. This project will become the host project after you click on save. If you click, it's going to be the host project. Step 2, select the subnetworks. So what are the subnetworks which we had? So maybe I can just add one more tab. We had 3 subnetworks. So in step 2, you need to select which subnetwork you want to share it. Step 3, give some permissions. That's where that compute network admin comes into picture. 3 steps you can do it. Enable the shared VPC. So let's go click on save and continue. Okay, you get an error. I'm going to paste the error, and I want you to help me fix this error, folks. Now you are in a good position to fix these kinds of errors. So it shares a specific permission is required. Please note, I'm the owner, folks. I'm the owner. Go ahead. I'm going to give you 10 minutes, folks. It's not a break. 10 minutes. Check out and let me know how I can fix it. And please put it in a private chat so that everybody is going to think. Okay. So let me know how I can fix this. So let me start the timer, or I can put it, I can see it in my slide itself, the time. So I'll just reset it. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, folks, and let me know the response for this. How I can fix this. You have a network admin role assigned, but you have a network admin assigned role to project. Yes, that has nothing, no connection here still now, Anil Kumar. We are in our host project. In our host project, and I can show you the role which I have. I'm in the host project. If I go to my IAM role, and we are not even come to service project yet. We are in our host project doing the first setup, and I being a owner, I'm getting this error message. That's the context. How do I fix this? I got one answer from Deepak, but I'm going to disclose once everybody does it. Uh, okay, Anil B also gave it. Anil Kumar saying API needs to be enabled to increase version, and the role must be. API quota, what API, if you can mention, that's going to be good. Role, if you can be very specific, like the others, Deepak and Anil B, they mentioned specifically a role. I want a specific role. What needs to be given? So at a high level, we can say permission not required. Everybody will be able to say, but what that specific role is going to be important. 2.5 minutes over, folks. Yes, Vivek, that is correct. Vivek, Deepak, Anil B got it correctly. Anil Kumar got it correctly. That's what I was expecting, Anil Kumar. Uh, okay. Kumar has an answer. I need to verify whether that is correct or not. I'll verify it and tell you, Kumar, once we do the actual demonstration. I'm not sure whether that's going to, that could be possible. Yeah, that's a possible one. Yes. Now, how was the stuff which you have done? What would have been the step which you would have done? Maybe after 5 minutes you can disclose so that others can think in the meantime. Deepak, Anil Kumar, Anil B, Vivek, Kumar, Aman got it correctly so far. Anybody else wants to try? Others folks? For this, you just need your console. That's correct, Anil Kumar. Yes, Mangesh, that's correct. That's correct. So far, all the answers are correct. Okay, I'm going to stop it at 5 minutes and tell you how all these people who gave the answer, how they figure it out. Okay, let's stop it. Now, how the learners were able to do it is basically just copy this message. That's the reason I mentioned this message in the text chat. Copy this permission stuff. Go to your IAM roles. This is going to be the best one which you can help. It's going to help you out. Paste this one. That's it, folks. Just paste it. It's going to show you the option. So only three roles. Only three roles is going to give you this specific permission. Compute admin, which we have explored to some extent. Compute shared VPC admin, never explored it. Notepad legacy admin, legacy itself is there, so I'm not going to even touch that part. So it's going to be between these two things is what we are going to play around. So does that mean, what does this mean, folks? I'm the owner. I'm the owner. Does that mean owner does not have this permission? What's your thoughts? What's your thought? Owner does not have this permission. Is that clear indication, right? So if I had put a filter like this, and if owner had come, then it is very clear owner has it. But it shows very clearly owner does not have this one. Basically, even if you are an owner of the project, the shared VPC is not going to be enabled. Basically, is the key part here. So you need to have specifically either one of this. Maybe why don't you quickly go search for roles/owner. This is at the project level. 3,925 permissions are there. Control F. 0 items, folks. I cannot find it. So owner does not have it. Very clear. Now, please help me. How should I add access? So let me help. Please help me out. How should I have this role added? Compute admin or compute shared VPC admin? I have to add this role. How do I do it, folks? And this is in the host project, so I have to give it in host project. How do I give it? How do I give this role, folks? How do I give this role to Mahesh? Because this is the person who's setting it up, and as per the IAM, this user has only owner. Just add a role. So yes, click on this. Is this what you are saying, folks? Anil B, is this what you are saying? Okay. So I'll add compute admin. Either one of them should be working, right? So add it. And we usually know it takes time to propagate all those things. So what we will do is we'll take a 10 minutes break. We'll just leave it like this. Take a 10 minutes break, come back. Definitely it should have propagated. Then we will resume back with setting up our shared VPC. Okay. So let me stop here.
This conference will now be recorded.
So before the break, what we did was literally gave in host project compute admin role. There's one question from Mangesh. Compute admin role and shared VPC are same permission. So these are two different roles, but these roles have the permission which we want basically. So the purpose is different, but both the roles have the same permission. Okay. So if I just go to my IAM roles, so if I click on admin, compute admin, it has 549 permissions. If I go to my shared VPC admin, it may have less, 14 only, but what you need is there. What you need is there. That's it. Now let's go back, refresh the screen and see whether in my host project, I'll be able to do it. So I'm back in my host project, refreshed it. Let me click on save. Again, not, okay, there is a new, is it a new message or something new? It's the same message, right? Same message. Still not enabled, folks. What's the issue? What could be the issue? Are we doing right? 10 minutes, you cannot tell about the propagation. It has propagated. Good. Good, Vivek. That's the right answer. Where is that mentioning? Where is that mentioning? Anybody else wants to give a try? Vivek got it. And Vivek, if you can tell me how you got that confirmation that it is at that. Anybody wants to else try? What is the issue which we are facing here? Or if you want to try the other role, you can also give a role. What is that? This compute shared VPC. This is going to be better. The reason is compute admin is very much broader. Shared VPC admin, if you see, it is very less. It is very less permissions, only 14 permissions. So it's preferred to use this one compared to that. So maybe I can do this, remove this, and search shared VPC. If I search for shared, I don't get this, folks. So first we tried compute admin, it came. So compute admin, it comes up. If I were to give that shared VPC, so let me type fully compute shared, that was a name, right? If I'm not wrong. So it does not show up. Or if I just search shared also, it does not show up. The reason why it does not show up, as Vivek mentioned, this is a role which you have to give not at a project level. What you're giving is at a project level to Mahesh, compute admin or anything. So giving it at a compute admin level, it's not, sorry, at a project level, it's not going to work. It has to be at an organization level. So yes, you have to go to the org level and do it. So what I will do is I'll remove this. That shared VPC, compute shared VPC, VPC admin is not even available at a project level. So compute admin is available at a compute level. So that's there the confusion got cleared. So if I go to my host project, yes, Vivek, sorry, yes, Anil Kumar, that's correct. So if I just go to my org level, oh, you want me to search for that? Okay, let me just go back. Host project. XVPN is what you wanted to search. XPN. Let me search it. I may doubt whether it's going to show up. XPN. No, it does not show. It does not show. So basically, it is inherited by the project from the organization. Yes. Yes, Saman. That's what is happening. So let me just go to my org level. To my org level. This is the org level which I have. I'm at the org level. Now, if I edit, add a role, if I search for XPN, what Anil Kumar mentioned, at an org level, I will see that. Or if I search for shared, I'll get this. So the role which you're going to apply should be at an org level. Only then it's going to work. This is the constraint which they have put, folks. And this is the main reason why the shared VPC works only in an organization node. So you will not have an org node, meaning you cannot apply this. That's the reason it does not work. So either you can give compute admin role. If you want, you can give it. It's going to work. I can show you that. I'm a compute admin at an org level. Now, if I go refresh the screen, click on save and continue. It works. It moved to the stage 2. Stage 2. It works. I'm just going to cancel this just to show that compute admin works. Compute admin works. I'm going to disable this. You can give compute admin at an org level. It's going to work. The better role which you have to give at for shared VPC to work is, instead of compute admin, prefer to use compute shared VPC admin. The only reason is this role has only 14 permissions. So if I just go to roles, compute shared, there's only 14 permissions. So principle of least privilege can be also leveraged here. So that's the reason. What I will do is, instead of compute admin, I'm going to change this to, remove this, click on add. If I do this, if I search for shared, I get that shared VPN, sorry, shared VPC admin, save it, done. Now go to your host project, click on shared VPC. You should be able to enable the stuff. Is this part clear, folks? Even I have done video on shared VPC in my YouTube channel, but I've not seen anybody discussing this part. They hide this part. They hide this part before doing the demonstration. This is going to create troubles. So instead of spending 20 minutes explaining this, they hide this part. But when you do the real implementation, you'll get stuck with this. So you should be aware of it. That's the reason why I did this part. Hope it is clear. Uh, Thanks, Aman, for the confirmation. Others, is that part clear? So you need to have this specific role, uh, compute shared VPC admin at an org level. Only then it's going to work. Thank you, Mangesh. Now we have crossed the hurdle of the first stage. Now the host project is enabled as shared VPC. Awesome. So the next part is either you can share all the subnetworks. If you share all the subnetworks, it's going to be basically a shared VPC. All the subnetworks, we have 3 subnetworks. Or if you say, no, I want to only share some specific subnetworks, then I would say the apt name is shared subnetworks. Shared subnetworks. So what we are going to do, we are not going to share everything. We're not going to share everything. We are going to only share Singapore and Taiwan. We will not share Hong Kong for a specific reason, so that I can show you what subnetwork is shared, what is not shared. So that is the main reason. So step 2, only enable 2 subnetworks. Remaining 1 is not going to be shared, basically. Good. Click on continue. Now is the one which is going to answer Kumar's question. Why compute network admin role only you gave? That is going to be answered now. So now what I'm going to do basically is give permissions. So now you shared what VPCs, sorry, what subnetwork to be shared. Now to which project you have to share, you have to mention it. You have to mention it. So these are called as service projects. So you need to attach the service project. So we have 3 projects in this organization. I'm not going to select host because it's already there. There's no point in sharing it with back there. So I'm going to use service project A, service project B. These are the projects to which this subnetwork should be shared. That's what I'm saying. Then the most important thing in the shared VPC demo is this part, folks. In the beginning, even I made a lots of mistake when I was understanding the shared VPC concept, but this highlighted stuff is very, very important. So spending some time here is going to make it very clear. Is there a question?
Yeah, for example, I created my subnetwork, I mean, my VPC, shared VPC first, and then I created my projects later. Then if I
You can
refresh,
attach. You
okay,
can attach. You can attach a new project if you want.
okay. But it's not mandatory that we need to create a
You
project
should have
first.
all the projects. No. You can attach it later also. You can attach it later. Maybe if you want to do that part, I can uncheck this. I'll only keep it for one project. Later, I'll show you I can attach it to another project. Okay, so that's going to answer your question. So you don't need to have well in advance all the projects, and it is not practical also, right? It's not possible for you
Exactly.
to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So reading this literally is going to give a good amount of understanding. So select one or more roles users in the attached project, meaning the attached project is service project A with the selected roles. The selected roles will be given compute network user role on the selected subnetwork. Anybody got this 2 sentence, folks, or one sentence? Is this part making sense to anybody? What is that they are trying to say? It's basically English, nothing else. What do you get it from this line? But it has lots of stuff to have here. Anybody wants to comment on this sentence? What does this actually mean? This is my understanding, folks. So let's make something very clear. Service project. Sorry, I have to increase the font. This is my understanding. So select one or more roles. any of these 4 roles is what you can do. Users in the attached projects. So what are the users who are there? So users in the attached project with the selected role. Meaning, if I just go to the service project A, go to IAM, put a role. The roles which I wanted to see is basically instance admin, network admin, owner, editor. So meaning owner Mahesh, editor these 2 service accounts. There's no instance admin. There is one network admin, which is learn.gcp 2028 user. So these users in the attached project with the selected roles will be given compute network user role. This is a new role on the selected subnetwork. So my understanding is this one. So there is my learn.gcp 2028 user .com. This is a user in service project A. This user has compute network admin role. So what this is going to do is, when I do this process, will get user in which project? In host project for basically subnetwork. What was that network? Subnetwork SG and subnetwork Taiwan. This is my understanding, folks. Anybody has a different thoughts? So in very simple terms, similarly, if it's owner, compute instance admin, so they are going to get it. So for simplicity reason, I'm going to remove all these roles. Let's only give this. This is my understanding. So the user in that service project, this is the user, and this user has network admin role. We have explicitly given it. That was the first step which we did. And this user will get access to host project subnetwork, basically subnetwork Singapore and Taiwan, and he's going to get this role, compute network user role. What is this role trying to do? If you want to know, explore it by just going into the roles. Click on this 78. So basically most of them are going to be read access. So if I just do compute networks dot get, so if you see, it's only get, basically a trimmed down version or a read only access to your network. So I want to use this for creating VMs, all those things. Basically I'm not going to touch your network, but I'll use your consume your network. That's what it is indicating. So even in my video, if you see, it is a 4 minutes video 2 years back I created. So I would have left everything as default, but we went little deeper to know the understanding of each and every screen, and we have understood it now. So is this part clear, folks? So basically this user is going to get compute network user role, and we can see it by ourselves. Now if I click on enable, now basically by default when you enable shared VPC, it is only for compute engine virtual machines. But if you want to enable it for Kubernetes engine also, you can enable it by just this checkbox. We don't want to do that. We'll keep it simple. If you want, you can enable it, and there's a video also in my channel, you can look into it. It's just a small enablement, you do it, that's it. So click on save. That's it, folks. Shared VPC is created or enabled, to be very specific. Now you should just start using it. Let's see whether we will be able to have it. Yes, I have it. Basically now it's completed. Now what is going to show is basically the attached project is service project A. And what are the subnetworks which you have shared? These are the subnetworks, Singapore and Taiwan, and shared with who? With one user. Who is that user? You just click on this show permissions. You see this, folks? Is that making sense now? So if I select Taiwan, it shows the only user which you had who was a compute network admin in the service project A has got compute network user role in this project, in the host project, so that this user can read the network details, subnetwork details, and the firewall details. So is this part clear, folks? That's it. We have our VP subnet shared VPC created, folks. That's it. So if you go to your home screen again, it is going to always show you these details. Now the main part is go to your service project A, go to your service project A, go to your VPC. Nothing is going to be changed except a new option has been enabled. A new option has been enabled. Previously, it was something like this, like your service project B. Nothing was there. Now, because you have attached a project, you see a network attached. Okay, this is okay. I'll know what is the reason. So I'm the owner. I'm the owner. So it's going to show even Hong Kong. I'm the owner. It's going to show even Hong Kong. But when I log in as learn.gcp 2020-28 user, it's not going to show Hong Kong. I'll show you that. Anyway, we have given the access. We should be able to see it. But when you go to your service project B, because you have not even attached it, it's going to remain as is, same. So to make it very clear, what I will do is I will swap my screen to my other browser. So batch 6, where I have logged in as learn.gcp 2028 user, refresh it. I will switch my projects. Now I should see service project A also has come, B also has come. Yeah, because I have given network admin role. So if I click on service project A, it's just a refresh. Let me retry it. Yeah, after a couple of refresh, it works. So I am in learn.gcp 2028 user. I click on shared with me. I see only SG and Taiwan. Is this part clear, folks? Kumar, this was the reason why we gave network admin role in the service project. Now, if I switch to service project B, it's not going to have any network, so it's going to show this message like this. Is this part clear, folks? Basically, so now I have a VPC which is there in my service project. If I have a VPC, whether it is the actual project's VPC or the shared, I can create VMs. Now I have my setup. Now let's say, for example, after some times, service project B was created. Now you want to attach it. Like how Kumar was asking. Can we attach it later? How do we do that? Simple. Just go back to your host project. Click on attach projects, add this attach projects. It's going to show you the project. Basically select it, make sure it's only this one. I'm in Mahesh user, folks, where I am the owner, all those things. So only network admin. What is the subnetwork you want to share? You want to only share only network subnetwork Singapore. That's okay. Just share that. Only one network. That's it. Click on save. Now I should have two projects attached, basically. So I have two projects attached, and with service project A, two subnetworks are attached. In service project B, only one subnetwork is attached. To verify it, swap the screen, Go back to the user, which is learn.gcp 2020-28 user, refresh it. You should see in service project B also now there is a shared tab, but only one subnetwork is going to be there, or two. Should be only one. If it's two, I need to see why it is a reason. Can I not do that? Let me check it out. Let me check it out. So permissions, refresh it. I'm in my Mahesh account, uh, shared. Oh, okay, got it. So if you see, basically, with the same user, right? So subnetwork SG, it is already shared with this user. So I can read it. I can read it. Subnetwork Taiwan is also having the same user. So that's the reason it is showing up. It's showing up. Maybe if I try with some other user in a different project, it's going to only show only one subnetwork. So if you're using the same user, you will have this issue. You will have this issue. Um, that's okay. That's okay. Maybe meaning what even if you don't share explicitly a network because you gave access, maybe we can do something like this. Let me just dismantle this, folks, or let me edit it. How do I do it? One project, one, no, that's not going to work. As long as I have access to the subnetwork in any project, I should be able to see it. Though does not make sense. Okay, fine. Uh, Only if I use a different user, I can show you different users will have different access to different subnetworks. But since the moment I select the user network admin and select the subnetwork, in whatever the project be, he'll be able to access it. And that's the reason why you see even in service project, even though we only shared one subnetwork, we are seeing both. Is this part clear, folks? Let me know if it's not clear. I can repeat it one more time. Because this user has compute network user role, he's able to see it in any project, and any projects there, basically. So now you have the networks created. What else? Go ahead and start using it. Simple. So go ahead and start using it. So if I go to my service project A, I'll create a VM. I'll create a VM. Oh, I cannot create a VM. Why I cannot create a VM, folks? Why I cannot create a VM? I'm in service project A, logged in as this user. I'm in service project A, B and A both. I'm not able to create a VM. Any reason? Oh, network is there, folks. You see, network is there. I showed you network. Network is there, folks. That's where we shared it, right? So it's there. Network is there. Quota is not exhausted. Quota is not exhausted. I can assure you that. You can ignore that message. Need compute instance admin permission. Yes, that is the role which you need. So what you have is only a network admin. With a network admin, you cannot create a virtual machine. So you need to have at least the bare minimum compute instance admin role. Only then it's going to work. So let's give that role. So coming back to the main screen, uh, service project, IAM. So never ever forget the IAM roles, folks. That's very important. So only network admin. With network admin, I cannot do anything with VM creation, so I have to add one more role. Let's go with the least privilege. So instead of giving compute admin, we'll give compute instance admin. Okay, so compute instance admin plus compute network admin plus few more roles is equivalent to your compute admin superset. Compute admin is your superset. Done. And similarly, if you want to create a VM, you will have a service account. You need to give an access to the service account, means give that also. So you know that. So if you want to give it, give that also. But that's not required, if I would say. If you don't need a service account, without a service account you want to do, just leave this. Go to service project B, IAM. Compute network admin, add one more role, basically, which is compute instance admin. Done, folks. Now if I refresh it, I should be able to see basically my screen should have the create button enabled. Let me just refresh it. Button is enabled in service project A. Refresh it one more time, or hard refresh it. Now I should be able to create the VM. So in service project, I'm going to create it as service project A or server A or service. Okay, let me create a service B, service, something like that. So service project
Excuse me, Vivek here.
uh, Vivek, is there a question?
I am a bit confused actually. To
What?
whom you have provided this permission at which project? Actually, that
Come
was
again,
very.
come again, come again.
To whom you? I mean, like where you have provided this permission. I mean, to which user you have
Okay.
provided this in which project?
So the user which the user which I have given is learn.gcp 2028 user. This user has compute admin, instance admin, and compute network admin. Two roles I have given. Similarly, in my service project A also, I have given these two roles. So I have given these roles. Now I log in as this user, go to this project, create VMs. Is that clear or not clear?
Is it a compute admin? I mean, sorry, shared VPC admin. This user.
No, this user is only these two roles. This user has only two capabilities, basically. Okay, to make it very clear, right? Okay, let me just make it.
Oh,
So this is the user. Font is becoming a problem. You know this user. In service, in host project, what is the role this user has? Host project. In service project A. What is the role this user is having? Let me explain it. So now you have this user. Now in service project A, in service project B, this user learned or GCP 2028 user has these roles, because of which he can create a VM. And if this project service project A or service project B has a network in their project only, or he can also create a network if he wants, because he's a network admin, so he can create it. But he's not going to create it for some reason. I will tell you why. In host project, learn.gcp is going to have instance, network, user role. These are the various roles this user is going to have basically. So when I create a VM in service project A, I'm going to not use the network of my project, but I'm going to use the network of host project. To use the network of host project, I should have this role. Is that clear now, Vivek?
Yeah, okay.
So if without this role, I cannot even read the other host projects, other projects network details. Okay, so and if I just create service project, and it has to be either Hong Kong or Taiwan. I'm going to create it in Taiwan. Now it's going to show this message. Yes, we know that. I'm going to make it as without any service account. I don't need any service account for now. Go to your networking. So you will see a nice screen in networking. So I'm in service project B. If I'm in service project B, you will see the firewall rules. You will see no network. And this project does not have a network. We know that. But what this project has is basically a shared VPC or a shared subnetwork, to be very specific. To know that, click on this pencil icon. You will see a very new screen, folks. This is something which you will not see if it's a normal project. Only if it's a service project only, you will see this kind of a stuff. Any network in this project? No. Any network shared with this project? Yes, it is shared from host project, and the name of the project ID is, the host project's project ID is learned hyphen now with some number. So I have Taiwan. I have Taiwan. Good. And I don't want any external IP. Basically, I'm going to turn it off. So this feature is going to be coming only when it is a service project. And when you use service project, you cannot use firewall rules here. You have to directly apply the firewall rules, whatever you want. So you cannot turn on firewall rule in the UI like this, basically. Okay. So click on create. So I will have a VM. Maybe I can have external IP address if I want. I'll create an external IP address. Tomorrow we'll talk about IAP. Then I can talk more about without external IP address. Create. Let me just edit it one more time. Have this with an external IP address also. Without external IP address is also possible. Tomorrow we will see that. Let's not make too many components in the same demo. So service project has a VM. In service project A also, I'll create a VM. Service project A, I'll call this as service project A itself, this instance itself as service project A. Service project A, Singapore. Make it as no, I don't want any service account for now. Networking, same message. You will see there is a shared VPC. Click on it and you will see Singapore because your region is selected as Singapore. That's it. This is a new part which you see when it is a shared VPC. So now in your real projects, when you're working on any shared VPC, if you want to know whether this is shared or not, you can easily go to your VPC and see, or you can create a VM. You'll see this kind of an option as long as you have the necessary access. Click create. So in my service project B and in my service project A, I have VMs created. I have VMs created. Now you can look, the network is the same, folks. The network is the same. What is that column which is extra here? Okay, maybe I have zoomed it. Okay, so service project A is also same network. Service project B is also same network. Now, can service project A and service project B VMs interact each other, folks? Is that possible? Is that possible? Possible, not possible, folks? Why it is possible? If not, why? Why it is going to be possible? Any reason, folks? Same network. Simple. That's correct, Anil Kumar and Mangesh. Because they are same network, as long as you have the right firewall rule, they should be able to communicate. Now, let's try that. Let's SSH. One minute, something is happening. More the time, it's something which is fishy. Longer time, what could be the problem, folks? If you want, we can wait. But by this time, you could have got an idea. So let me just click on view. Yes, Mangesh, that's correct. Let me look into the network details. Firewall rule. You don't have sufficient permission to list the firewalls. Okay. Why it is showing like this, folks? Why it is showing like this? Any idea? I don't have access to the firewall rules of shared VPC is what it indicates. So I don't have access to shared VPC. I have not, only I can look into the specific, at a project level, they have not given me access. Only to that sub network, they have given me the access, basically. So the port 22 is not open, basically, is what it indicates. Then where you will go and do it, folks? Now we have two service projects, service project A, service project B, and it's not connecting. So where is the, in which place you are going to turn on this firewall rule? In which place, in which project? You have three projects, basically. Service project A, host project, service project B. Where should I turn on the firewall rule? Good, Vivek. Others? Yes, Mangesh, that's correct. Anybody else? Where should I turn this on? Looks definitely like a firewall issue. Basically, if you have a doubt like that, you see this one. What is a network? So it should be, it's not on the service project. It's not on the service project. It is not at an org level. Basically, this VM belongs to which network? Simple, folks. The concept is always going to be very simple. So VM is using this network. Go to this network. Where do you have this network? Is it in your service project? No. Is it on your shared project? Host project? Yes. Go to your host project. Turn on your firewall rule. That's it. So this way you will see the manageability becomes easier. So it's not on your service project. It is on your host project. So because if I add it also, okay, if you just go and try to add it in your service project, first of all, if you are very curious, I can just show you that. So go to your service project. So I am in my service project A. Now, without a network, how will you create a firewall rule? So without a network, if I go to firewall, I don't even have permission to create firewall rule because I'm a network admin, instance admin. I don't have access to create a firewall rule here itself. I'm blocking it. I can create my own network in this project. That is possible. This is possible, but without the but best practices in a service project, never ever create firewall networks, because that's going to break the entire purpose of shared VPC. So make sure the access is given in such a way so you don't give anybody, nobody should be able to create a VPC, a subnetwork, a firewall rule in the service project. So all should be managed in your host project. Now let's go to our host project and turn on our firewall rule. Firewall rule, there's no firewall rule itself created. Let me quickly create a firewall rule. So I'll call this as allow
Mike,
SSH.
do we need to
1 minute.
share?
1 minute. I'll finish it and then you can ask the question. Allow shared SSH. Allow SSH FW. I'm in my host project. I'm in my host project. So select the network and I can make it back as the normal one to all the instances in this network. Then 0.0.0.0/0 specific port 22. That's enough. Only SSH is what I want to do, nothing else. So create it. Now I have a firewall rule. Swap to my other screen where I'm logged in as my the learn.gcp user. If I go to my service project A instances, this time I should be able to SSH because the firewall rule is open. I should be able to SSH. I'm able to do it. Similarly, service project B, I'm there. I'm there in both the systems, logged in. Let me get the IP address. So can we do a ping, folks? Can we do a ping of this machine? It's going to work now. Both are same network, folks. This ping is going to work. Yes, no. Ping is going to work or not? Folks, couple of answers. That's correct, Vivek. So whenever this question comes, the diplomatic way of answering it is, yes, Ankit, you are bang on. That was good. That was correct, absolutely. So basically, it all depends on your firewall rule. The firewall rule which I created, if you see, it was only to allow SSH. Only to allow SSH. ICMP is not there. It's not going to work. No ICMP. So meaning the ping is not going to work. So I can just show you. Ping will not work. Ping will not work because you don't have the firewall rule. Now, if you don't have the firewall rule, no problem. Go to your shared VPC, configure it. So now the management becomes very easy. So it's one single network. firewall rules, everything you manage it there, even though it is one service project, two service project, or 100 service project. So one specific place, centralize, you manage all your networking. So let me just edit this firewall rule quickly. Allow ICMP also and save it. The moment it gets saved, the ping should start working. Ping should start working. Ping between two machines. So now it's going to work. So the firewall rules has a major role to play, but I don't need to manage multiple firewall rules. One single place I manage everything because it's one single VPC. So I wanted to show the control which you get over shared VPC, folks. That was the whole reason why this entire demo was stretched like anything, basically. Let me just stop here and answer any questions, folks. And this is something which, if you don't have a domain, you cannot do it. So ask me questions. I'm happy to answer you. If there's any demos on shared VPC further required, I can share you also what we have done so far. Let me stop it here. So there's one question. In a nutshell, shared VPC will be used to share the same VPC across multiple projects. Absolutely correct, Mangesh. That's the
My
whole purpose of it. Yeah, Kumar, sorry, you were having a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we created shared VPC and we given it organization level, right? But then when we are creating a firewall, why we are creating it host project level?
Good question. So to enable shared VPC, you need to have the IAM role at an org level to only enable shared VPC. Remaining everything is going to be at a project level. This is how they have designed the constraints basically. So you need to have an org node, only then you can have shared VPC. So where will you share it? Basically for that purpose they have done it. But when you create VMs, the VMs has to be always in a project, right? So that's the reason you create all your firewall rules, all those things in your shared VPC only. That is only the IAM part to enable shared VPC or not. Remaining everything is going to be in a project level only. Is that clear, Kumar? Not clear?
Maybe I missed something when you're creating a
Okay.
host project.
No. Okay. When I go to the host project, right? Host project, that org level stuff which we gave was basically the role. So because shared VPC, to enable the shared VPC, you need a permission, that specific permission. So if I just go to my host project.
My point is host project is also a project only, right?
It's also, okay, basic. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Tell me.
Yeah, see, maybe it's a project C. In my point of view, project A, project B, host project is also a project C, right?
Also a GCP project.
Yeah, but we are calling as a host project. But host project is not managing project B and project C, right?
Host project not managing beyond. Okay, simple, Kumar. All our GCP projects, first of all our GCP projects, what usually they do as a best practice is they create one GCP project, give any name, Kumar project, Kumar hyphen GCP hyphen Kumar is the project. This project is going to have VPCs only. The host project, the place where you want to, the project from where you want to share your VPC, that project is going to be called as host project. And usually this project will not have any other resource, folks. General
Okay.
practice or a rule of thumb, only networking is going to be there. You should never create a VM. You should never create a database here. You can create it. There's no harm. But as a best practice, this is dedicated for networking purpose only. Only keep network, your VPC subnetwork firewall rules route. That's it. And this can be consumed by other service projects. Okay, it is also a normal project only that it has that capability of sharing its subnetwork with other projects. That is the only extra capability it has. Is that clear, Kumar?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I was initially confused. I got it now after seeing this
Yeah,
diagram.
it is
Thank you.
also, yeah, it is also a project only. So there's one more question. Every user who wants to create a VM and wants to view the network, each must have compute network instance admin or compute network at the host. If you are a user who wants to see or when you are so if you want to just see, okay, to view the network details, right, you should have basically compute network user role. That's enough, Vivek. Just compute network user role at the subnetwork level. For example, let me just give one more. uh, if I just go to my host project, so if I select this, now I can see subnetwork SG, which is part of host project. I can see, who can see? Only this user can see. Apart from owner editor, they can see definitely. Apart from that, the user who can see is this one. So you just need to have compute network user. That's not enough, nothing more. If you want to see it, if you want to create a VM in some other project, like service project C, in that project, this user should be able to, should have compute minimum compute instance admin role. If he has that, he should be able to do it. All right. Any other questions, folks? The whole funda is you can control everything from one network, basically. That's it. All right.
Mahesh, in
Yeah.
case you want to delete, or let's say there is no requirement to create more VMs, or let's say one project has been scrapped, there is no
Hmm.
requirement. So
Hmm.
how I mean, what is the
Detach it.
process to remove and
Detach it.
delete
No,
detach it?
detach it. Detach it. So basically, first, if you say you want to remove service project, you want to detach it. Maybe it was a POC or something. You want to remove it. So first of all, make sure there's no VMs. There's no VMs in that project. You have to remove it. So if I just go there, let me detach it one. Uh,
Means first
let me
VM
detach
VM has to be
service.
deleted.
Yes.
In
So in service project, you have to delete the VM. Delete the VM.
uh, before the
Then you go and detach it. Otherwise, it's going to show there's something used, basically. Let me just delete it.
I think limit is 25 projects, no, can be shared. I mean, what I didn't
That
remember
is
the
VPC peering. That is VPC peering. We have not come to that. So
name.
you can have 100 service projects like this. We'll come to that. That's the next slide. So now I have removed the VM. So now what I can go is basically go to my project where I have the host project. There I easily click on this, detach this. I have detached service project B. Now, if I go to my service project B project as a Learn GCP user, if I go to my network, I see no network. But for my service project A, I still have that shared project, shared VPC part, the two subnetworks. That's how you detach it. Is that clear, Vivek? All right, folks. So if there's no more question, let's look into some of the limitations of your shared VPC. The number of service projects which you can have, you had only 2 service projects in the demo which we did. You can go up to 100 service projects basically. And if you want more, you need to contact sales, the Google sales. There's a quota limit basically, and you cannot increase it, the quota in your UI itself. You have to contact Google sales basically. That's the first limitation. The number of shared VPC host project in a single organization can be 100. What does it mean? You have an org node. You had one host project. You can create like this 100 host projects basically. And one host project, one service project can connect to only one host project. This is a limit which you cannot do. This is a hard limitation. One service project can attach only to one host project only, basically. Is this limitations clear, folks? May not be asked in the exam, but only when you're doing a real implementation, this is going to be helpful. This is going to be helpful. This is what Vivek was asking. Then the not 25, it's 100 actually. So 100 service projects you can have, 100 host projects you can have totally. So each host project can have one service project can attach to only one host project. The number of host projects to which a service project can be attached is only one. Is this part clear, folks? Yes, no?
Okay, last one I got it, but then I have confusion in second one.
Okay,
Number of,
second one is basically the number of shared VPC host projects, where you are going to have your sub networks that in a single organization. Now, if I go back, now this is my org. This is my organization. Now I have one host project, two service projects. Okay, service project A is attached to host project, service project B is attached to host project. Now I can create how many such host projects you can create? In my account, I can create totally 100. If I need to create more host projects to have more shared VPCs enabled, I have to reach out to Google Sales. Is that clear now, Vivek?
okay, that's meant
Unless,
in a
yeah,
VPC I can create 100 host projects which can connect to any.
VPC, no. In a VPC, no. In a host project, if you make that project as a shared VPC or enable the shared VPC, what you can do is you can have that kind of similar projects 100 basically. 100 host projects is what you can have.
Okay,
Inside these
100,
host projects, definitely you are going to have sub networks which you want to share it.
yeah, 100 host project can be hosted.
Created. 100 host projects can be created. Those
Created
100
in
host projects,
a
yeah,
single organization.
yeah.
Okay.
Similarly, now what you created was only one. You have still 99 in my organization node, and I don't have that quota. I have only quota of 3 projects. But assuming this a quota which you have, so the max which you can have is something like this. An org node. So I need to set the font. Somehow it is getting reset. I don't know why. Okay, org node. So you have host project. So you can have host project 1 till host project 100. Now I can have service project SV1, SV2 till SV100, all attached to host project 1. Similarly, I can have something like host 100, something like this. I can go up to 100 in my host project name called 100, host 100. This is basically what it is saying, folks. So basically in your project totally, if you were to do this, basically 100 host projects is going to be there. 100 into 100. Okay, okay. Each project is going to have one host is going. Okay, 100 into 100. 100 into 100. 100 host projects. You can have hundreds. Oh, sorry, is this the right one? Yeah, this is the one. Plus 100, if I'm not wrong. This is for your host. This is this thing, if I'm not wrong, if my math is correct. So I have 100. Okay, sorry, no, leave it. Let's not make it confused. So 100 host projects. Each project can have 100 service projects. Yeah, 100 into 100, 10K. That is the number which you can have. Good. So we saw this part. This was interesting. This is for people who want a centralized networking, but there could be some startups. This very well works for a large scale organization where they don't want to get their hands dirty for every networking stuff. They want to just do in one place. And that way you will see the person who was doing networking in on-prem will not lose a job. They come to GCP, they leverage shared VPC and do that. So they're not losing the job there. So that's an important thing here. And this feature, which as per my understanding is only available in GCP, AWS and Azure. Folks who have worked on it, have you seen something like this? My understanding, no, is what I understood from other AWS folks. VPN, forget about VPN. So we have not even come to that. So VPN uses the concept of the routes peered. So, but here it's one network which has been shared basically. So a concept very similar to like this may not exist. Now, if it's a startup, where everybody knows networking concepts, all those things, and they want to have more control, then you use a concept called as VPC peering, where basically the routes get added. So this VPC peering, VPC network peering to be very specific, works on any GCP network, folks. Very simple. So as long as it is a GCP VPC or a GCP network, it is going to work. Simple. You need to have certain specific settings to be turned on, but it could be your VPC and my VPC. I can peer it. So the routes are updated. I can start communicating between both the networks using internal IP address. And if you see the shared VPC concept, it was also leveraging the internal IP address only. Two service projects, for example, these two service projects, or maybe I can just, the service instance A and instance B is what you created. They can communicate each other provided there's a firewall rule which allows you to communicate. So communication using internal IP address is very well emphasized in shared VPC. Same thing is going to be emphasized in VPC peering also. But in a slightly different way. So this is between two GCP network, and these two GCP network can be within the same project, can be in two different projects, or can be in two different projects in two different organizations. Basically, as long as they are a GCP customer, I can peer it. So this is really a handy option, and this is a normal stuff which you get in other cloud also. So VPC network peering, or they may just call it as peering. Basically, what basically has is they create a bridge between the two networks. The routes are going to be added, and because the routes are going to be there, so it's something like this. One network you can treat it as one state, another network you can treat it as another state. So if both the networks needs to have a transportation, they have to have a road or a bridge between them. So that is what this network peering is going to do. That the route is going to be enabled, so then you should start communicating basically. So, and the key part is the traffic travels only within the GCP project. I'll show you this demonstration tomorrow, where I'll show you this entire stuff. So today I'm not going to do a demo. So I just wanted to give you a lead to tomorrow's class. VPC network peering is only between two GCP networks. As long as it's a two GCP network, it's going to work. So let me just stop it here. I have just given a hint to tomorrow's class, and we will see a demo there tomorrow. Yes, Vivek, what's the question?
In shared VPC, so the firewall, network is global. Let's see, one project is in India and another is Singapore or US. So
That is
how
subnetwork. That is subnetwork,
that is a,
not
so
network.
how the egress ingress and egress charges will be calculated?
Okay, so ingress. Okay, so the question is,
Traffic would be itself on GCP itself. It's not going outside, but still there will be some mechanism to charge about the egress cost.
so the question which Vivek is asking is, if I have shared VPC, okay, why don't I go to this tab? So I have a shared VPC. So I have one in US West, one in US, one in US West one in US East one. So now if a VM starts pinging, sending traffic to another VM, so these are in two different regions, right? So there's going to be egress cost definitely. So there's going to be an egress cost. We have not even talked about that. There's a slide which I'm going to talk, but since you asked it, so there's going to be an egress cost always between two different regions. So if I take that egress cost, so egress type, egress to the same cloud, same Google Cloud zone with internal IP address, zero charge. Egress to two different Google Cloud, to a different Google Cloud zone in the same region is going with internal same region, Singapore A, Singapore region, but from Singapore A to Singapore B, you are going to have a charge. VM to VM between two different regions. You will see the cost like this. It totally depends. There's going to be an egress cost. It's not going to be free. Ingress cost is going to be there always. Only if it is in the same zone, then it's going to be zero. Meaning, to put it in very simple terms, service project A has a VM in Singapore A zone. Service project B has a VM in Singapore A zone. Then the egress cost is going to be zero. We have not talked about the egress cost, but answer is depending on the zone, it's going to be charged. If both two different projects, but they are in the same zone, then zero cost. Any other questions, folks? We'll start tomorrow with VPC network peering. Any other questions which you have? And if you have no questions, you can stop. We will stop the session for today. If you have any questions, I have 10 minutes because I have a hard stop at 10. So that's the reason I had to stop it now, if to answer any questions in the last 10 minutes.
Mahesh, I was not able to follow network peering. Is it okay to explain a couple of minutes tomorrow?
Network peering, I'm going to start it. So that was just to give you a lead what we are going to discuss tomorrow. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'll start from tomorrow. I'll start fresh on network peering. So don't worry about it. That's another way. So it's a totally opposite of shared VPC. Centralized, decentralized. Whenever it is centralized, you know what is the problem, what's the advantage. When it is decentralized, what is the problem? In simple terms, shared VPC is like a joint family. VPC network peering is like a nuclear family. Simple. So we'll
Why
talk
you
more about it.
because the third bullet is little interesting. Software as a
Sorry.
service. The third bullet in your slide, software as a service, SaaS. The reason you specifically mentioned help to build SaaS.
I will talk about that. Software as a service, how do you build it? I'll talk about it. I have a scenario to show itself. I'll show you about it. How do you do? Yeah.
So with shared services, shared
VPC,
network.
shared VPC.
Yeah,
Shared VPC.
shared VPC, we cannot build SaaS.
You can. So what is software as a service in very simple terms is, say for example, you are an organization
Yeah,
who builds a website, very nice website, but your
correct.
organization does not have AI capability.
Correct.
So you have to rely on some other third party to rely on AI capability. Now, fortunately, you also using GCP, the AI company is also using GCP. Now you can peer the networks and build a offering to the customer. Maybe a insurance organization where you want to have some AI capability there. Now you can access the AI company's API using external IP address, something like company.ai.com/version1, something like that. But if both are using GCP, right, you can use internal IP address. So your egress
Okay.
cost could be reduced. That is the reason why you can use software as a service. That's the reason why they mentioned. You can use it internally. If it's internal, it's going to be your own organization. Maybe from one business unit, you're using another service. So it's going to be one network only, right, in shared VPC. So it is
Okay.
possible, but only if your organization does not have a capability, you are relying on something, some other organization. Fortunately, they are also using GCP means then you can leverage this.
So in other way, for example, I created my own API, and some other company wanted to use my API. So in that case, it's always better to use peering rather than the shared VPC, correct?
We'll come to that when to use, when not to use it tomorrow, because we are not looked into VPC network peering. So it's not good to comment right now. So we'll say when to use it, when not to use it. Tomorrow we'll discuss it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yes, Vivek has a good news to share with us. So go ahead, Vivek.
Actually, I have cleared my PCA on Tuesday, and I was a bit lucky because all the case study has been refreshed actually. So I thought that I should give this news to everyone that
So what Vivek is saying is, okay. So just for your information, Vivek has associate cloud engineer, so he had prepared it for that, and for him the cloud, this thing became easier. Basically, the cloud architect became easier, and Vivek, when Vivek took it, it was the current stuff, the old questions only, so it was not refreshed. So what Vivek is saying is he got these case studies. So there is a new stuff called as coming soon. I don't know the definition of spring 2021. So you can search in, so they are saying it is going to come in 2021. So if I do 2021 search, it's going to be
it,
anytime between June 21st. It should be up. The new case study is going to come. So what we are going to do is in our class, we are going to do this one to help you be prepared for the latest exam content. So at least the case studies, you will get something like, I got 10. How much questions you got, Vivek? Was it
it
10
was
or something?
15
Sorry?
question or 15.
15 questions.
Yeah.
15. So this is, so I have heard somebody got 20 questions. So you may get some good questions there. So we are going to demystify this, the latest one, because we are going to finish it in by May. So May will be definitely part of spring 2021. So let's not take any risk. So we are going to do demystify this one. Demystify this one.
I do remember that first 11 question was only on case studies. Only.
Hmm.
There was not a
For
single
me, the
question.
last 10 questions was case studies.
So altogether 11 I remembered, and after that 4 or 5 questions was there in between of exam actually. So,
Good.
but it was, so I prepared almost 7 months for PCA, and the base, the main I mean base which I got from your classes, but
Hmm.
the preparation was still ACE. But for, as the architecture level of foundation, I have got from this class, this class actually, and your study material. The content which you have not covered, I have studied from your document and
Okay.
yeah, I remember I didn't security network and AI I was too weak actually. I referred your document. That's it.
Got got it.
Rest of the thing I prepared along with you actually.
Good. So Vivek mentioned me this on Thursday or Wednesday, I guess, in LinkedIn. So was aware that Vivek cleared it. Happy to know that. Congrats, Vivek. Once again,
Thank
I
you.
mentioned you it in the listing.
Thank you for your good knowledge actually. I know I remember from last 6 months or 5 months. I know it took me for 5 months to study for prepare for ACE, but it's just 1 and 2 months. I along with your study material and your I mean the classes I have prepared more, in a
Yeah,
good way that I can think like a PCA can think. That's why.
good,
Thank you very much
good,
for that.
good. You're welcome. Vivek.
So that's a motivation for you people. So, but you are going to see a new set of questions. Like Vivek is like the last set of people who got to see the old questions. You people will see always a new question, basically. So we'll stop it here, folks. I have a hard stop today. So tomorrow we can definitely discuss if there's a more further question, definitely. So we'll stop it here. I'll share the recordings once it is processed with you. We can stop it here. Okay. Thank you, folks. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.